Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting of May the 19th. Before we begin, I would ask anybody wearing a ball cap, please take it off to respect council chambers. I'd like to start off with the Lord's Prayer. Please remain seated. Anyone wishes to do so may join us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. Forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Okay, Laurie, call the order, please.
Okay, mover, seconder.
Mover and seconder. Wendy and Brian.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Councillor Hoogley, that the regular council meeting of May 19th, 2026 be called to order at 5:33 p.m.
All in favor? Carried. Roll call, Laurie, please.
Mayor Bennett,
Present.
Reeve Watt,
Present.
Councillor Gochekio,
Present.
Councillor Hewitt,
Present.
Councillor Hoogley,
Present.
Councillor King, Councillor Wren.
Present.
All members present except Councillor King.
Okay, thank you. Call for his agenda. First, Alan and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Wren, seconded by Councillor Gochekio, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of May 19th, 2026 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Any declaration, pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Minutes and notes. Motion for approval of April 21 council meetings. Keith and Brian.
Moved by Reeve Watt, seconded by Councillor Hoogley, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 21st, 2026, and the special council meeting held April 28th, 2026 be approved as presented.
All in favor? Carried. Down to corporate services. We have a report first.
Yes, we'll do that first.
Okay, good evening. So this is just a report following the year-end report that was presented at the last meeting on April 28th. There was a few amendments done since then, just with new information that we received, which changed a few numbers. So I was just going to mention those changes in the reserve transfers that will be done for the year-end. So first of all, there was a change in fixed assets. The financing stayed the same, but the contribution, which came from the 2025 year-end general surplus, was changed to $239,442.47. And then we have in the sewer system, again, is just a contribution for the 2025 year-end surplus, changed to $29,067.88. And the water system was changed from $90,000 to $119,754.57. Most of these changes were due to the Roy Street debenture, just the way that it was separated out, the percentages. So that brings us at the end where we mentioned all the different surplus per category. So the general, 239,000, the waste collection stayed the same at 97, and water 119,000, and wastewater 29,000, as I mentioned before, which changes a little bit for the reserve fund at the end of the year. So the balance will be just over 5.5 million, and the estimated balance at the end of this year, 2026, about 5.1 million. And then so I provided you with the reserve table showing the end of 2025 and the estimations for 2026, as well as the last 5 years ending balances for each reserve.
Any questions of council? Mover and seconder. Jennifer and Brian.
Moved by Councillor Goche-Keel, seconded by Councillor Hoogley, that the council approve the amendments to the 2025 reserve transfers as outlined by the treasurer.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, second item under business is the dedicated gas tax funds. Lori?
Good evening. This is the annual gas tax funds that we receive from the province, and we normally contribute to the public transportation program with the City of Pembroke for the Pembroke and LV handy bus. So again, this is just a letter that was received from the City of Pembroke from the Ministry of Transportation with the agreement for transferring the funds for that program.
Okay, and this, again, is directed directly to the handy bus. Any questions to council? Wendy?
I did just want to, because the handy bus is a specialized transit service, and it does say just public transportation, so it is clear in our bylaw that we passed, eh? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there is an item in the bylaw that specifically states for the Pembroke and LV handy bus program specifically.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Or, I'm sorry, mover and seconder first. Keith and Wendy?
Moved by Reeve Watt, seconded by Councillor Hewitt, that the council agree to commit the Township of Laurentian Valley's portion of the dedicated gas tax funds for public transportation program to the City of Pembroke, and that bylaw 2026-05020 be forwarded to the bylaw portion of the regular council meeting of May 19, 2026 for enactment.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, delegations. We first have Mr. Peter Harrington from Welsh to give us the presentation of our financial statements year-end. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. We're going to get so there's our audit recommendation letter, and we don't have any recommendations after this year. There was a new policy put in place that wasn't followed exactly the way it should be, and management, and I discussed it with the mayor. Management, I think we're all on the same page now. It was a new policy brought in from the former treasurer, and I think in the changeover, there wasn't the muscle memory in the organization to institute it the way it was intended. So, but I do think everything's is in place now. So we'll limit that. But overall, it's not the policy is a good policy. It just wasn't in the early stages of implementation, wasn't working as intended. Okay, so next I will confirm those surplus numbers that was in the last memo regarding the year-end surpluses before the reserve transfers. So I will confirm that. So on page 3, I will talk, this is a kind of the rebound of last year, as 2004 kind of got drained on your cash because of Roy Street. Roy Street was a $5 million project, so you see cash, demand loan in the previous years. Now your cash is rebounded, and that essentially is a big chunk of that is the $5 million you got in financing for that project. So it's kind of the rebound of how last year looked distorted, but this year is back to where you were intended. The other items I would talk about on this line, now the investments, you don't really have any control over. Those are your proportionate share from the Waste Management Board and the airport. I will say taxes receivable is probably around 10 accounts. We did talk to the CAO and the treasurer that I think up to 8 may be eligible for tax sales. So just want to highlight that one, the taxes, because I've reviewed another file in Renfrew County, and their taxes have receivable balance have increased. So I don't know if that's the sign of the economics or where we are, but that is becoming something we want to watch out for. So I did go over the accounts with the treasurer and the CAO, and they are going to monitor them. There are 2 that are being allowed for. There are 2 properties right now that are being allowed for, just so you know. Accounts receivable, that's really where it should be. The previous year had some grant regarding Roy Street. That's another of the Roy Street items. accounts payable, that really is because of your development projects that are going on in the East End. There's about the security deposits that you'd asked for from your developers are up about 1.5 million, and they're in that number. So that increase from 2.5 to 3.7, in fact, would only be about 2.2 under last year's numbers, and the accounts payable last year had some Roy Street in it. So those numbers are pretty well on where you would have expected. Deferred revenue general, this is another East End project. In this year, you've received, I believe, the end of the year, you received about 145,000 of funding for Robinson Lane that is to be spent in the future, or this year, or whatever, with regards to the Highway 148 project. Asset retirement obligation, I think I'll save that one for the note. It's really, well, I can just tell you right now, that the engineers suggest now that rather than, I believe, 2006, or the year 2067 being the last year you have to monitor the landfill, they're now projecting it to be 2092. So, yeah, I won't be here either. We say that. Okay, and long-term debt again, that's Roy Street. So on this page, I don't know, those were what I would say were the highlights, but I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Council? No, very well explained.
Okay, the next page, this guy, now again, you're going to see Roy Street did affect one line. If you look at the provincial and other grants receivable, about 700,000 of last year. That's why the comparatives are really, once you back out Roy Street, you're pretty well there. As you know, property taxation, you know, you did have an increase. Payment in lieu, you're going to have an increase because of a levy change. User charges are bang on. I said the provincial and other grants, the 1.5 is more what you're used to. The other two, the one issue, and it ties in as we go later on, is the fee service charges. There were some fire calls, and you will see in fee service charges, donations, and miscellaneous, there's an increase there. But if you go down to protection and property, the fire wages are up significant too. So that when we get into the comparatives on the expenses, those two are kind of offset. There's an increase in the fees, but then there's an increase in what it costs to protect. It was mainly in the fire department. Then in general government, this is where we always get a bit of the budget versus the actual is a tough number to reconcile, because in your budget, you're budgeting for what you have to spend, whereas the actual numbers include items that you've already spent. So namely, well, one way you haven't spent it yet, and the other way you've spent it. So in our actuals, you have amortization expense, which is depreciation, whatever. So the best way to look at your budget versus actual, there's a few places I'll highlight them a bit later on, but you'll see you weren't very far off, as I said, other than really in protection of persons and property, your actual numbers in comparison to the budget were 2.155. That is the one significant issue. You're actually under budget in environmental, which we'll get into with the water and wastewater, but as you saw in those budgets, but that might be just the learning curve right now of how the new City of Pembroke contract's going to work itself out. That you didn't really have great information at budget time, and you were under budget on that City of Water line, but you know, as I said, City of Pembroke, so we'll see if there's an adjustment to those billings. I don't know. So this guy, there's not much to, on the expense side, there's not really any significant place where I saw any issues, but again, I'll answer some questions if there are any.
Oh, Council, well, we're good. Go ahead, Peter.
Okay, we'll skip the next page. I'll just go to the sideways page, page 7. I'll just tell you, highlight it's hard, but the biggest projects, I'll ignore all, but in your acquisition of tangible capital assets, I'll explain the big guys, there's a bunch of little ones, but you had Robinson Road, not to be confused with Robinson Lane, 467,000, and that was unfinanced at the end of the year, which we'll talk about a bit later. Sandy Beach, 316. It's that 1.441 number. I'm telling where these numbers are coming from on under linear assets. So we have 467,000 Robinson, Sandy Beach, 316, Heenan Road, 212, Cemetery Road, 95,000, Glen Street, 88, and there was a bunch of other culverts, a bunch of other things. Most of those projects came in under budget, so that helped contribute to your surplus, just so you know. So that's all I have on this page, right?
Brian?
I just had one question on the page before. The accounts receivable, up substantially from the year before, from 60,000 up to 456,000.
Sorry.
Change in the level of,
Oh,
that's not really.
oh, sorry, okay, but that's change level. But that is the government, that's, okay, so when you're looking at the change in the level, last year there was 1.4, this year you received a bunch of the money from. So at the end of 2024, you had a bunch of Roy Street money owing to you, about 600,000. Once you receive it, your accounts receivable drop, right? And that's why that number, you're receiving the money. If that's,
Okay, because it's a different number than the outstanding taxes. But
well, no, think about it this way,
that's
it's a
the reason
positive
why.
cash now that you've received it, right? At the end of the year, it was, you actually had to, you now received it during this current year, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so again, we'll just talk briefly about Schedule 2. Those numbers, for the most part, when you go down to the expense side, this is a breakdown, kind of another dimension on your revenue and expenses. But what it does here is it kind of separates out what the amortization expense is. So you can look at these actuals, like for example, in your analysis, if you look at the general government before amortization was 1.596. If you go back to the other page where you're doing your budget, you had 1.577. Those are the numbers that you should really compare to your budget to see. So you're only 20,000 over, and as I said, protection to persons was the big one. General transportation, you're under 80. Environmental services, you were under 250. Recreation, you're just a bit over 28,000, and planning and development, you were under. From the 567, you're at 523. So for those are really where you should be comparing your budget number. We can't make that third dimensional thing, but I'll show you another place where we'll see it later on. But I just wanted to highlight that from Schedule 2. And actually, I'll flip all the way to, if you go to page 12, note 3, this is where I say we have to start watching out, because the other municipalities, I believe their taxes receivable went up 50%. So I don't know if that's an underlying economic issue or, but as you can see, your arrears went up almost 100,000. Those are taxes from they're from 2024 and before, and that ties into this penalties increase by 20. So that's something we want to be. I mean, management was very sensitive to that when I talked to them about it, so it's something to be aware of for the coming year. As I said, note 5, the next page, that's where we went it was 32 years of post-closure care, now it's 57 years. And then note 6 just highlights your long-term debt. Note 9 kind of confirms what the treasurer talked about. You got to remember, our reserves here in note 9 that are reported here are not going to agree with her number. I can't remember precisely what she had, point, because we're also proportionate, the Waste Management Board has a considerable amount of reserves to help fund that post-closure liability, and these financial statements are bringing in 23% of those reserves. So those are numbers from, some of the Waste Management Board numbers are in here, and same with the airport, not to the same extent, but the airport has some reserves as well. So those are here, that's why you can't agree them to what the treasurer talked about. And we also comment here about note 9, that you have financed the, as you see, unfinanced for the general government unfinanced was Robinson Road, and then you financed it subsequent to the year end at 3.74%. So that one's financed now. So you've done all. And then lastly, this note 10 is where you see how you did versus the budget. Again, it's another dimension, but this is why I'm saying, when you look at our financial statement, our page 4, whichever number, the budget doesn't look good, but when you get here, your salaries, consolidated salaries are budgeted for 3.535. The actual is 3.582. So you can see your numbers are pretty well, and that you don't budget for amortization of tangible capital assets. This is where it highlights what I've talked about in a couple places. And I think that really is it for this financial statement, unless there's any questions.
Council? No, it's very self-explanatory, and I know I've gone through it as well, and any of the questions I did have, you answered already, so.
Okay, I'll quickly go through water. The water, and this is, you go to page 3 of the water. Yeah. So essentially this due from, it's not really, remember when we do it, the other financial statement is a consolidation of, if you count really 4 silos here, and then and 2 silos. So there's, in that financial statement, there's 4 silos. There's general government waste collection, there's the water system, there's the wastewater system, then we bring in 23% of the Waste Management Board, and then we bring in 19% of the airport. This guy's just one of those silos. You can't owe yourself. The due from Township of Laurentian Valley is really just the number to balance, because the reserves, which we can get into a note later on, the reserves in the water reserve and the wastewater reserve is sitting in the bank accounts of the township. There's no separate segregated bank account to put those reserves in. So essentially the town, the bank account, owes this money to whenever the water system wants to spend it. So that's essentially what that number is. If people are wondering, why do we owe ourselves? It's just sitting in the bank. We just haven't, there's been no account segregated out, because, the general bank account's paying all the bills for the water system. It's receiving all the water charges. It's just so, you didn't administratively set up a whole another chart of accounts to keep track of, write checks just for the water system. So essentially that's why that account is there. And the other issue here is that, again, it kind of got flipped because the money came in for, the general system was paying for for Roy Street's water system. The general bank account was paying for it. Now the money's come in. It went to debt. Now there's the long-term debt on Roy Street. So that's all I had to comment on page 3.
Keith has a question for you.
You mentioned reserves for the water. Is there a magic number that we need to have in reserves for water? Like
No,
that
but
calculation?
I was under the impression, and this is beyond where we are, but I thought every 5 years you have to do a water study to deal with water rates, and I thought they looked at reserves at that time. And I think there was an engineering firm who did that. That's beyond what I do. So, but it's supposed to plan for the long term. The one thing is, we don't know going forward, because you don't have a water plant.
No.
So it's a bit different. You're unique because you're buying water from the city of Pembroke. but you do have pipes and everything else. And I mean, I don't know to the extent what the magic number would be for your reserves.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, page 4, sorry. And this is just where I just want to highlight that purchase of water issue. So as you can see, it increased, and I think people were expecting it to increase. If you look at actuals, it didn't increase to 20%. And that's where, and the same thing kind of showed up in wastewater. We don't do a financial statement for them. So there may be some growing pains here with the city and the new contract. That's all I want to say. And I think the discussion, I'm not saying that's what had happened, was to kind of use that reserve transfer, the surplus, to maybe smooth this out just in case the, the hiccups through this new agreement work itself out for the next few years until it settles as the growing pains are done. But I'll leave that for you guys to discuss with the treasurer. We had that discussion 6 weeks ago.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, and then nothing really else. I just highlight the reserves here are about 743,000. That's on page 11. So that it goes to the Reeves question. I don't know what that number should be.
Yeah, I'm not sure the last time we had a study done, but I don't know.
Yes, but Peter's correct. It's every 5 years.
Yeah.
There's a new study done, and I think it's in the process. Sorry, Peter's correct. It's every 5 years, and I believe we're waiting for the results from the one that was just done. We were hoping to have that by year end, and we still don't have it. So apparently there's one that's just been completed.
Okay. Okay, Peter.
Okay, that's, I think, the end of what I'd talk about. So if there's any questions, I can answer them.
No, I don't think so. I think, again, great job again. The township is in good financial shape. I won't make a comment on that, but we believe we are. But thank you for the time to come tonight, Peter, and we'll be passing the motion tonight.
Okay.
And your check's in the mail.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thanks, Peter. Okay, so our next delegation is, I'm sorry, do you want to pass that now? Okay, we got a mover, seconder to pass. Jennifer now.
Moved by Councillor Gauthier-Keel, seconded by Councillor Wren, that the Council of the Township of Laurentian Valley acknowledge and approve the 2025 financial statements as prepared and presented by Peter Harrington of Welch LLP.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, next is delegation. We have Taylor, for the Manager of Capital Works, Public Works, from the County of Renfrew to talk about the recreational trail. Before I begin that, we also are privileged to have our new OPP inspector, Sarah, who will be speaking next. Now, it just happened a coincidence that both of you are here the same night. Any of the questions that we have for Taylor will be addressed by Taylor, and any questions regarding the trail for Inspector Sarah would be addressed when she presents to council. It is not a public meeting, so therefore there is no engagement with the public, only council questions. Okay, Taylor, please. Yes. Yeah. So just for council's update, that the list of questions, or a good portion of the questions that were sent out by residents, which we had asked for prior to the meeting, was summarized and sent off to Taylor last Friday, and also to the OPP, Sarah, today. So most of the questions will be answered by Taylor tonight. If they're not answered by the end of his report to us, then we can ask further questions.
We make you work when you come here.
Yeah. But we won't keep you on your knees, though. Okay, welcome, Taylor. And we'll let you get started.
All right. Thank you for your patience, and through you, Mayor, to Council, thank you for the opportunity to come and present this evening. So as stated, my name is Taylor Hanrath. I'm Manager of Capital Works with the County of Renfrew and their Public Works and Engineering Department. Overall, the focus of the presentation will be on recreational trails, but as I like to do with opportunities like this, I have a brief overview of our department just to keep everyone in the loop on what we have going on. So who we are, this is a org chart for the Public Works and Engineering Department at the County of Renfrew. As you can see on the left side is the Operations Division overseen by Mike Beam, our Manager of Operations. On the right side is our Capital Works Division overseen by myself. The recreational trails fall under the Capital Works Division. As you can see, our Trails Coordinator, Anthony Hobbs, would fall under this division as well. So what we do, the department is in charge of the planning, maintenance, design, and construction for all county transportation infrastructure, which includes 860 kilometers of county roads, 253 highway structures, which would be a mix of bridges and any culverts that are greater than 3 meters in span, 279 kilometers of recreational trails, 50 trail structures, 4 patrol areas, and 5 patrol yards. Since 2023, the recreational trails has fallen under the Public Works Department. Up until that time, it was under our Development and Property Department. So an overview of our recreational trails. The Algonquin Trail runs from the border of the county in the town of Arnprior, northwestward to the border of the county in Head Clare and Mariah. It's approximately 250 kilometers long, and it's part of the Ottawa Valley Recreational Trail and the Trans-Canada Trail. The Ottawa Valley Recreational Trail is from Smith Falls to Mattawa, and once it's completed, it'll be 296 kilometers long. 184 kilometers of the Algonquin Trail is currently complete and open from the town of Arnprior all the way to Bissett Creek. Further development over the next few years will occur to get to the county border in Head Clare and Mariah. The K&P Recreational Trail is 22 kilometers long, runs from the town of Renfrew, intersecting with the Algonquin Trail there, to Calabogie. We are also currently in a lease to purchase agreement with the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority to purchase 6.2 kilometers, or acquire, 6.2 kilometers from the county border in the south up to Taddy Hill. The former CN line we do not currently own, but we are in the process of acquiring from the Township of Laurentian Valley and the Township of Whitewater region. That will be from the Quebec border and Whitewater region to Hawthorne Lane in Laurentian Valley. Currently, we are in the process of naming that trail, and as a result, because it's a new trail being acquired by the county, we were reviewing a trail management plan. And rather than creating a new trail management plan specific for that one trail, we are in the process of public engagement for a trail management plan for all of our recreational trails. The Ottawa Valley Recreational Trail has its own trail management plan, as does the K&P. But this management plan would replace the K&P, but oversee the OVRT trail management plan, because that one was entered into with the County of Lanark, the County of Renfrew, and the Township of Papineau-Cameron. So in 2026, on the Algonquin Trail, we have 9.8 kilometers of trail development planned for Bissett Creek northward. We also have the redecking of 3 different bridges planned along Algonquin Trail, one being the Madawaska River Bridge, one being the Snake River Bridge, and one being Gould's Creek Bridge. We also have 4 different bridge rehab designs planned to proceed this year, all in that northern section to promote construction and completion of the trail northward. On the KMP Recreational Trail, we have 1 design for a bridge rehabilitation proceeding this year, the potential being for construction next year. And on the former CN Line Trail, we don't currently have a capital budget for that. We do have a maintenance budget allocated with partnership from Laurentian Valley and Whitewater Region. So our typical maintenance on the trails, so for 2026, we have $200,000 for operations and maintenance on the Algonquin Trail. This would cover and $25,000 allocated for maintenance operations on the KMP Recreational Trail and $40,000 for the former CN Line Trail. This would cover such things as structural repairs, grading and surface repairs, vegetation management or tree planting, animal control, weed control, dust suppression, and we have budgeted for 2 applications of dust suppression this year, signage, gates and locks maintenance, enforcement, legal and taxes, and trail promotion and media. And one of the main reasons I'm here this evening is to talk about trail enforcement and the rules on the trail. So the current trail governing bylaw under the County of Renfrew is bylaw 13924. On the screen here is all of the prohibited activities on the trail. Currently, this current bylaw was approved in 2024 following public engagement. At the time, there was a trails governing bylaw for the Algonquin Trail and a separate trails governing bylaw for the KMP Recreational Trail. However, the KMP Recreational Trail had very limited prohibited activities and basically had no enforcement and no teeth to go with the prohibited activities. So at that time, it was decided to move forward with a general trail governing bylaw so that it would apply to both trails equally and to all future recreational trails that were incorporated into the County of Renfrew's network. Prior to 2024, the bylaw enforcement was undertaken by OPP paid duty officers. However, up until that point, it was difficult to get OPP officers out on ATVs because they had other things going on, and they had to coordinate OPP officers that were certified to operate the ATVs and snow machines. So in 2024, we entered into agreement with ProTech 5 Incorporated to enforce the county's bylaw enforcement bylaw. So in 2024, we were averaging approximately 10 hours or less per week in enforcement. In 2025, we averaged 15 hours per week. Now, that's an average, so there was some weeks where it might have been 5 hours, but there were also weeks where it was up to 30 in order to catch those spikes in the users. In 2026, we've budgeted for 25 hours per week on average. Thus far, it's ranged from 15 hours a week to 40 hours per week, depending on the week. We've been in consistent meetings since December 9th, being the first meeting, with staff from OPP, the County of Renfrew, ProTech 5 Inc., as well as bylaw enforcement with the Township of Laurentian Valley and the City of Pembroke to discuss ways we can improve bylaw enforcement on the trails and enforcement in general on the trails. From those meetings, we've learned that the Community Safety Policing Act was updated in 2023, which means that the OPP cannot enforce bylaw without a contract. So we're currently in the works of exploring what that would mean in entering into a contract with the Ontario Provincial Police to perform enforcement of our specific bylaw. At this time, they can only enforce the Trespassing Act, the Off-Road Vehicles Act, and the Snow Machines Act on the trails. But our bylaw fines are more exuberant compared to the fines that can be issued under those acts, so we'd like to explore having them enforce under those. However, we do have ProTech 5 Inc. out on the trails that does the full bylaw enforcement for under this bylaw. Some highlights for 2026. So we've officially opened 54 kilometers of Algonquin Trail, and it's been added to the Trans-Canada Trail Network. That is from the Wiley Road crossing all the way up to Bissett Creek. We're working on the naming of the former CN Line Trail. We have a new trail management plan in the works. The Bissett Creek and Highway 17 overpass study is officially underway. So the photo shown on the right is the Bissett Creek Highway 17 overpass. It's a 60-meter long bridge that we're in the works of examining our options, and once we have a firm design plan in place, exploring grant funding opportunities for work on it. And we are working on an updated active transportation strategy, which would incorporate the trails as well. With that, I was provided with a list of questions, and if council will oblige, I'll go through question by question just to make sure I haven't missed anything as part of the presentation. So question number 1, this past winter I observed absolutely zero improvement of behaviors of the snowmobilers, constant speeding, high amount of blowing through stop signs, the use of illegal mufflers. A new one I observed many evenings was snowmobilers stopping to smoke weed. It has been years of giving warnings. It is time for a year of stepped up enforcement with consequences for breaking the Highway Traffic Act, provincial laws, and bylaws. I've never seen evening enforcement when the majority of bad behaviors occur. Will the county modify the enforcement to increase patrols and not just do daylight operations? Will the county do necessary to enforce their own rules? Radar gun with properly qualified operator, qualified person to enforce legal mufflers, qualified person to enforce traffic signs as per bylaws. So enforcement ranges in timing. However, they are concentrated on the higher priority times, such as evenings on the weekdays and the 2 to 7 p.m. time slot on the weekends. Enforcement has been increased year over year. As I stated earlier, we're up to an average of 25 hours a week. And the county has now purchased a radar gun, and Protect 5 has been certified in its use. Its first use on the trails would have been over this past weekend. Another question, I was under the impression dirt bikes was a once-a-year pilot. Dirt bikes are manufactured to be loud. The majority of riders feel the need to amplify the loudness by constantly revving the engine. They are not made to putter at 20 kilometers per hour in community safety zones, and the majority don't even try to slow down. Dirt bikes are brutal. It is like living beside Daytona Speedway. Dirt bikes again be banned from the trail with strict enforcement? So we currently have license agreements with the OFSC, the Renfrew County ATV Club, and the Ontario Federation of Trail Riders, which is the federation that oversees off-road motorcycle use Ontario-wide. Our current agreement with OFTR expires in November of 2028. Prior to that, we will undergo public engagement for spring and summer of that year to gain input on trails and authorized uses. A new agreement would be subject to county council approval at that time.
Taylor, I'm just wondering if maybe if it hits council as you answer these questions, can we have a quick Q&A after each question, just so it's, we keep it going and we don't hammer you at the end with all the questions. So maybe we'll do question number 1 first. Keith? Question 2. So one of the big questions I've had, and I've heard from residents, is that Protect 5 is out there. They're covering 25 hours a week, which obviously limits the amount of kilometers. But the whole idea was to control the speed and stop signs, etc. But up until this point, they had no ability to lay a charge.
If I may, so they didn't have a speed radar gun up until this point.
Right.
They could still lay charges for everything else under the bylaw. They could also track speed by following the perpetrators in order to gauge their speed that way as well.
So over the winter and the reports with Skidooers and the reports we received from you each month, how many hours they spent, where it was spent, or whatever, there was in excess of 100 warnings of speeding. Why not lay that charge? Because if you got hundreds of calls or hundreds of people doing that, we're not enforcing the speed limit if we're not laying charges.
Yes, so one of the things we learned from the meetings that have occurred with Protect 5 and the OPP was that there was a hesitancy to lay charges based on tracking speed by following. So they continually issued warnings. However, now that they have the radar gun, they actually have speed trap plans in place. One of which they were going to attempt this weekend was by having one officer at one intersection with the speed radar gun, another officer at the next one that would stop the individuals that were flagged for speeding. And they've been directed to issue fines for issues such as that.
Brian, just before you ask your question, will that be made public? The amount of charges?
Yes, yeah, we report all of the input that we get from Protect 5 on a biannual basis, but we can do more often whenever there's a significant number of charges laid.
Brian?
So last weekend was the first weekend they were out, and how many charges did they lay?
Last weekend was the first weekend they had use of the speed radar gun. I haven't had input yet on how many charges they laid over the weekend.
You generally get the report once a month?
Typically monthly, yes.
Okay. Alan?
So Protect 5 can enforce all of the bylaws. So we looked at all the reports that came back, and there was very few, if any, charges in there whatsoever. I know one of the biggest things is loud mufflers, aftermarket mufflers, on ATVs, on snowmobiles, on dirt bikes, okay? And there hasn't been one charge for that laid whatsoever. I was actually on the trail yesterday, and there was probably a 25-year-old with his wife or girlfriend on just a regular four-wheeler going down the trail with an aftermarket muffler. I could hear him for 5 miles going down the trail, and he wasn't gunning it, he was just driving it. So that would be, to me, a very simple charge for Protect 5, and why they wouldn't have any at this point. They should have stocks of them.
Through you, Mayor. So there was one charge laid over the winter for a modified exhaust. We do have an updated trails governing bylaw being presented at our operations committee meeting on May 27th with an update in the prohibited activities to make it easier for Protect 5 to lay fines whenever it comes to modified exhaust and things like that. One of the things we explored was whether they could just measure decibel levels. And unfortunately, on discussion with Protect 5 and the OPP, it's very difficult to lay a charge just based on a measured decibel level. However, we've incorporated wording for the actual modification of the machines that's much easier for Protect 5 to check and visualize whenever they've stopped somebody on the trail and lay fines for it.
And maybe this is for the OPP later on. I was under the impression that the OPP can lay charges just because it's a modified exhaust on the vehicle, it's not the manufacturer's exhaust. But we'll wait for the OPP for the answer for that one. But I would think that that would fall under the bylaw as well, that says that you can't operate a vehicle that doesn't meet all provincial manufacturer safety standards. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, just to close the loop on that one. So the wording's been adjusted slightly so that any modification to the noise suppression system can be flagged and fined under the bylaw.
Jennifer?
This is going to be kind of a two-part question. So you said the hours of 2 to 7. So I live on TV Tower Road, which is right in my backyard. 5 a.m., I'm out having my coffee. That's all you can hear. And you can hear them coming way down, and they're speeding, because I don't think there's a speed limit at that part. I'm not sure.
50 in the
Is it?
Yeah.
They're not doing 50. Is there a way that we could change hours up? And also, they were out on the weekend, which trail, they alternate?
Yes, so as far as scheduling goes, they take input from what we forward them. So whenever we get trail complaints about certain issues happening, we use that to establish a pattern for offenses and to schedule their patrols. We forward everything on to them so that they know kind of the hot spots for certain times of day and try to plan their patrols accordingly. So if you submit, whenever there's an issue like that on a certain day, please submit it to us and we'll use it for scheduling for Protect 5
Because it doesn't
as well.
start at 7 p.m. at behind my house. Like it's 11, 12, 1, like there's no set time, right? They just go whenever.
Yeah, and it's not just 2 to 7 that they patrol, that's just a focal area that's been identified.
So I know in the past, Brian, before your question comes, with the OPP, for example, speeding on roads, which we have the same problem in just about every road in Laurentian Valley as most municipalities. We always went to the OPP at one time when we had the police group with municipalities to ask the OPP to concentrate on a certain road. So please, we've got a lot of complaints on driving the road, and OPP would spend more time there than other areas, and maybe next month it's another road, etc. So is that a concept that maybe the county is going to follow?
That is a concept we currently follow.
Okay. So do we as a municipality, how does that direction get to you? Because I'm sure you don't want to get 100 emails a month saying, concentrate on my road. So would it be done through the municipality forward it to you, or how would you like that to work?
I'm okay with it coming from the municipality. If residents want to email me directly with certain times of occurrences, I'm happy to filter through those as well and forward them on to Protect 5 so that they can use it for their patterning and scheduling as well.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
So just looking at value for dollars, we've had Protec on the trail, hundreds of hours. As of yet, one charge laid, and that one charge was the person basically giving themselves up and saying, yes, I'm violating the thing. That's the only charge laid to date. The question is, what's changing? Because at the moment, the whole thing is going in a downward spiral. The speeding is going up, noise is going up, trespassing is going up. What's going to change to turn this around in the opposite direction?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. So only one charge was laid for modified exhaust this past winter. I don't have the stats in front of me for the past years, but there was a modified exhaust charge and an operating on a closed trail charge and 7 warnings over this past winter for speeding. So the speeding fines will increase likely now that we have the radar gun in place. As long as speeding's still occurring, they'll be more apt to catch them. But Protect 5 has been out continuously throughout the years. I'd have to go back in our notes to see what other charges have been laid, but it's more than just the one.
But how can we put more teeth in it? Because at the moment, Protect 5 is a laughingstock of people on the trail, because in their own reports, they say when somebody is in violation of speeding or having a permit or plates or whatever, they just drive off or drive away from them, and they don't follow them and pursue, and no charges are laid.
So in some instances, they do attempt to pursue or follow or gauge where the person went off the trail to attempt to identify where they may have pulled into a certain residence. Unfortunately, they can't get every single one, and they can't leave the trail for hours on end and avoid patrolling as well, or avoid continued patrolling.
We're not even hopeful of getting every single one. It would be nice to get a few.
I would agree with that. And part of the plan over the weekend was to set it up so that you couldn't have those runaways as easily. You would have the offender identified at one intersection by an officer, and at the next intersection is where they would actually get stopped. So if they did try to turn around and get away, as you've said, the other officer is in place as well and would be notified.
And they're on four-wheelers? Okay,
Yes, in the summer months, they're on four-wheelers, in the winter months, they're on snowmobile.
okay. Keith?
Thanks. Last week at the Operations Committee meeting, it was mentioned that you're doing another updating the recreational management plan. You're going to go to public and the stakeholders to get some feedback. So saying that and considering what's been happening with the dirt bikes, they're there when the trail is open, they're there when the trail is closed, there's aftermarket exhaust, they're speeding, they're not licensed, they don't have a trail pass, et cetera, et cetera. Would this not be the opportune time now to exclude those from the management plan? I know you said a little earlier that you have an agreement with the other 3 companies until 2028, but with what's gone on up to date, to me, it would only be appropriate to exclude dirt bikes on the trail right now. And I pass that on at this point, and then I have a second point here to make.
If that is a desire of this council and county council, it's something that could be explored.
And how do we address that? By ladder?
Best solution,
through
if
you?
that's the desire, would be discuss it with me, and then we can discuss a resolution towards county council as well, or operations committee.
Okay, my second point is with public awareness is needed much more than ever as far as I'm concerned. We have a PR person at the county who has social media available. We should be showing the restrictions to the use of the trail. We should be publicizing the number of fines that come out so that people can see, and the amount of the fine. People have to know. If they don't know, they're going to continue on as it is. But newspapers, every kind of media that we can use to get that message out, respect the trail And we have people living on the trail, and we need some control on that. So I think public engagement would be a big step towards helping that as well.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, yes, we can increase public engagement to identify, especially with us updating the trails governing bylaw, identifying those changes within it and the enforcement restrictions that will be in place as a result, as well as identifying that speed radar is out as well. I'm sure could potentially help with prohibiting those or deterring those activities.
Especially the radar, because up until this point, the zero tolerance means do what you want. Because mostly people don't watch the rule. I've been on the trail, some of us have ATVs with skidoos, and we see the abusers. We see them on the roads too. Don't get me wrong. But now that you have the enforcement to actually lay a charge, now's the time, as you said, you started last weekend, now's the time to get it out, as Reeve Watt says, to the public saying, hey, we have enforcement now, because before you couldn't really enforce a lot of the rules. So I think that's huge to get it out there.
One other comment on behalf of council is that we did have the Trail Advisory Committee, which has been disbanded, and council would like to know the reason for that, because they felt that there's no direct response from the municipality to the Trails Committee.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So the Trails Advisory Committee was in place for a number of years. It started off as a recreational Trails Advisory Committee, solely focused on Algonquin Trail, with the KMP having its own. I believe 2 years ago it was merged into a single advisory committee, and a lot of the time from those meetings it layered an extra step, and much of the report was copy and pasted into our Operations Committee report. So all trails items now go directly to the Operations Committee without the need to have to go through another meeting before getting to that point. So all of council, or Committee of the Whole in this case, would receive the information at Operations Committee.
So is our bylaw enforcement officer going to be attending every meeting, and going forward, council should give him any questions to make sure that it's, because you've had one meeting, my understanding, since December, right? That's the only meeting you've had?
So,
This new
sorry,
committee?
the meeting you're speaking of is just at a staff level. That is just staff from the county, staff from Protect 5 Inc., staff from OPP, staff from Laurentian Valley, staff from the City of Pembroke, and we're going to expand it to other municipalities for their bylaw enforcement as well along the trail network.
Right.
As far as the Trails Advisory Committee, that was a grouping of councillors and that were also members of the Operations Committee of the Whole as well.
Right, but the elected official has now been pulled away from that committee, your new committee, and it's staff only. So any direction the council has, we got to get it to our bylaw enforcement officer to bring to that committee that you're having, correct?
Well, any direction can be brought to the Operations Committee. So the
Right.
meetings are very irregular. They're just a staff talking about solutions
Okay.
that potentially could impact the enforcement on the recreational.
But you mean staff, County Renfrew, and staff from other municipalities?
Yes,
As
whoever
part of
would
bylaw
like to
enforcement.
join
Okay.
as well.
Just so we get the line process. Okay. Okay, that's, Wendy.
Couple of things. First of all, do you think maybe because of the situation, there's a lot of issues, obviously, that are still not resolved, that maybe they could temporarily have this advisory committee reconsumed?
If that was a desire, we could explore it. So the reason the advisory committee was not resumed was anything that went to the Trails Advisory Committee had to go to Operations Committee anyways. So rather than have to schedule a separate committee meeting prior to operations, now everything goes directly to Operations Committee on a monthly basis.
Yeah, no, I do understand what you're saying too, but I'm just thinking in the interim, so that we could have our representative or have a council representative on there until we get some of these issues fixed, if that might be a possibility. That's just a thought. Secondly, your hours, 2 to 7 is kind of the main time, but I know from talking to several residents that have the issues, it's evenings and nights. So I'm just wondering if there would be any way to revisit that time.
So the 2 to 7 was identified for weekend patrols as being the high priority time frame. Again, the schedules fluctuate. On the weekdays, they're typically in the evening whenever most people are be out on the trails, because during the day it'd be a waste of a patrol because most people are at work. So on weekdays, it's in the evening. On the weekends, it fluctuates, but that focal point has been the 2 to 7 timeframe, but it's not always 2 to 7 that they're out on the trails.
So just to follow up with that, so are you saying that the evenings, are they done at 7 or are they just starting at 7? What's your evening time?
It can fluctuate. So there might be days where they start at 4 and finish at 9. There might be days where they start at 6 and finish at 11 at night.
Okay.
It's just unfortunate that, you know, there's 25 hours a week for 200 kilometers of trail. This is 8 years that there's been issues in different areas, and it just doesn't seem to be enough to solve the issue, but.
If I may, so the 24 hours a week, we do get them to focus on those hotspot areas, which is typically urban sections. And the 24 hours a week is still 25 more hours than were allocated in 2023. So we are endeavoring to do more. We are endeavoring to increase their capability to enforce and to have them out on the trails more often. And like I said before, it's an average, so there might be weeks whenever it's a slow season or a slow time of year where they're only out 10 to 15 hours for that week, and there'll be other weeks where there's a spike where we go up to 40 hours a week or so or more. Currently, because the ATV season started, we've had them at 30 hours a week for the last 3 weeks, and we'll trail back to probably 25 hours a week unless we have another spike in issues that we want to have them out for as well.
Is there an opportunity, if money came the county's way, to increase some of those hours? I guess Protect 5 open to more hours?
Yes, they would. Thus far, they haven't objected to any increases in hours that we've sent their way.
Okay. Alrighty. Brian?
So what percentage of the budget is for enforcement versus adding new trail?
So it's the operating budget doesn't get used for adding new trail, but approximately 10% of the operating budget goes towards enforcement.
Because I guess where I'm going with that is before you add more distance that you can't patrol, you haven't got the existing part under control and you're adding more to it. Should the money not be spent reining in and getting the existing under control before you increase the length and distance that needs to be patrolled?
If that's a desire of council, it can be something we move forward with.
Well, I think the desire is there because it's been going on, and your email list will attest to that, that it's not solved, not even close to being solved yet. And I guess when taxpayers see the amount of money, increase in trail, improving trails, and they, as Brian says, it's out of control because you almost need a month of 24-hour coverage to get the 5 or 10 or 15% of people are breaking law consistently. Once you eliminate that group, or at least slow that group down, now you might have some type of control. I'm not saying 24/7, but there has to be a huge increase and not 25 hours a week on the whole trail. Because not the whole trail has the issue, obviously, it's just the built-up areas. Jennifer?
Just a little side note for next year too, if we could have patrol before May 1st, because nobody seems to know that it isn't open till May 1st.
Thank you, through you. So one of the struggles we have is sending them out on the trail in a four-wheeler to do enforcement, so that, because we don't want to give the impression that the trail is open to four-wheelers. So what we've thus far asked Protect 5 to do was to do stationary intersection stops so that they're not out on the trails during the close season. They do patrols, but it's typically intersection to intersection rather than out on the trail in an ATV or side-by-side.
Okay, we're moving on here, so go ahead. I think we're down to question 3.
I think we've addressed some of the questions, but I will
Yep.
attempt to keep going.
I think the third question is regarding dust suppressant and
Yes.
when it happens.
So last year, the second dust suppression was applied about 2 weeks before the trail closed in the fall. That made no sense. Could it be applied at a much earlier date so it is useful to nearby residents is evident. So the first dust suppression is nearly complete for this year. The second application is planned for August. It was planned for August last year as well. However, we had some severe issues with our mechanical equipment and weren't able to get on it in time for that. So it should go ahead in August of this year as long as we don't have any major issues. We've also explored if we do have mechanical issues such as that, bringing a contractor in to finish off the application as well. Question number 4, there are many close calls at road crossings along Burns Drive. The gates do their job in the summer, allowing ATVers and bikers. Being wide open in the winter is useless in slowing down snowmobilers. We have requested chicanes or moguls as a method to slow machines down at crossings. It is effectively used in other jurisdictions such as Quebec. Again, will the county consider installing speed reducing technologies? So we currently have a design prepared and we're going to pilot this summer at Drive-In Road and Dairy Road, and we're also working on a design that we can use in the winter time as well. I'll pause there. Are there any questions about question number 3 and 4?
Alan, go ahead first.
Well, just talking about the chicanes, to be honest with you, with the four-wheelers or side-by-sides, there's not as long as there's gates there, that's gonna slow them down, okay? I'm on the trails, okay, and that's gonna slow them down. I'd be spending the money on snowmobiles to get the snowmobiles slowed down. They're the ones where the gate's wide open and they can fly straight through. You come up to any one of those gates on a side-by-side or a four-wheeler, and you got to slow down or you're going to hit the post. So I'd be spending the money on getting the snowmobile one up rather than worrying about the ATVs. Now, there are the dirt bike issue but if we can get them off the trail, then we wouldn't have that problem, right?
So part of the reason we're moving forward with the summer pilot was for dirt bikes to slow them down approaching the intersections. And what we're proposing implementing is something that can be adjusted come wintertime to act as a chicane for snowmobiles as well. It's just those distances and widths have to be modified to ensure the groomer can pass through as well.
So they're going to be done this summer or like before summer or?
The pilot is planned for this summer. So likely you'll see an install in late June, early July.
At Dairy Road and Drive-In Road?
Correct.
Okay. And so if it works, then next year we'll budget for more in other areas. Is that what we're saying?
Where we have those hot spots of complaints. So the more occurrences I get via email and start to flag those hot spots, those would be the areas we'd identify for proceeding with further.
Perfect. Thank you. Keith?
Is there an opportunity to have an actual gate at each end of that Burns Drive area? An actual gate that's shut when the season ends, so you got that month or so lap over, and a full-fledged gate would keep people out, period.
So currently we do install concrete parapets at each end, but we do have to allow access for walkers and cyclists because the trail isn't closed at that time. It's just we don't allow motorized at that time, but we do install parapets to block better block access.
I think with the gate, pedestrians could walk around it where the machines can't. And dirt bikes, well, we hope to eliminate those.
Yeah, so we put a concrete block basically in the side-by-side opening.
And that was done this year, this spring?
That's been done for the last number of years, basically in the time between the snowmobiles and the ATVs.
Okay. Cedar trees, number 5.
Will the county finish planting cedars on the berm for the last gap on Burns Drive this year? So continued cedar tree planting has been budgeted and may be increased if we have savings in other areas of our maintenance budget or if we are successful in getting grant funding. There will also be an additional topsoil berm extension in the area as well to further allow for cedar planting in the future as well. I'll pause there.
Okay. I asked the next 2 questions, 1 and 2 OPP questions.
With that, I can skip to question 8 if preferred.
Yes?
I guess that one would be OPP as well, sorry. Question 9, and that's for OPP as well.
Okay, sorry, I'm missing it here. I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, sorry.
So the question on my sheet says it's question 10, but it's the 10th question I received. All trail signs offer only county business hours contact. Why is there no immediate contact information for reporting trail misbehaviors for weekends and outside of county regular hours of operation, which is when the problems occur? So after hours issues can be called into the county's business line so that we can use them for tracking and patterning and establishing where best to send Protect 5 in certain times. However, any misbehavior that is not considered emergent can also be called into the OPP non-emergent line at 1-888-310-1122. If for patterning, the issue may be sent to me via email as well. The voicemails or email work for me either way, and we can use those for better scheduling Protect 5 out on the trails. Any questions about that one?
No.
How can solutions be generated for trail problems if the county hesitates or will not release the statistics for the trail infractions? So the county typically presents enforcement statistics on a biannual basis to committee. We do make adjustments on any input that you receive as well. So things such as an increase in infractions occurring, whenever we get reports of that, we'll either look at scheduling Protect 5 in certain areas or upping their patrol hours for that week to better counteract that as well. I'll pause there to see if there's any questions for that one.
Wendy and Alan.
So because they're fairly new and really haven't started laying charges yet, would it be reasonable to ask for monthly reports for a while so we can see if enforcement actually is happening?
Yes, we do get monthly reports from Protect 5 Inc., and we can make them a monthly occurrence in our Operations Committee reports.
Okay, thank you.
Al?
And could those then be forwarded to our municipality? I'm sure other municipalities would want them, rather than just going to operations. Could we get a copy? So we get a copy of our animal report every month. So, and what happens in that? We'd like to see a report, something like that, each month on.
So that would in fact go to our bylaw enforcement officer?
Yeah, I can share that with your bylaw
Yeah,
enforcement
okay.
officer.
Yeah. Which can be forwarded then, us then. Okay.
So this one's somewhat been covered. Is it true that the County Trail Advisory Committee has been disbanded? So as advised, all trail items are now presented directly to our Operations Committee. This has streamlined the process so that we don't have to worry about scheduling a Trails Advisory Committee ahead of time. It can take it directly to Operations Committee. And it's also then presented to all members of County Council at the same time for discussion as well.
Okay, sorry, Brian, I had a question from the previous question.
Yeah, I was just wondering with Protect, how they're monitored, what benchmarks do they have, and what their priorities and criteria is. So when you read through the reports from the wintertime, it almost seemed like they were more of a tourist ambassador for the trail as opposed to enforcement. And, you know, what is their primary job on the trail? You know, it was for dog owners who had their dogs off leashes and not dealing with the real problems on the trail. So what is their job there?
So their primary directive is full enforcement of all the prohibited activities in the trails bylaw. Again, speeding was difficult for them to enforce up until they had the speed radar this past weekend. However, going forward, it'll be more accessible for them to enforce, but all other items on the trails bylaw were their directive to enforce as well.
Regarding the radar guns, is there more than one, or is there one?
There's one currently.
So if there happened to be a breakdown on one, is there a backup process? There must be, right?
Yes.
Sorry, just crazy question.
Yeah, so if it were to break, we would purchase an additional, and they're already certified in its use. So it'd be the same radar gun that we'd bring in for
Okay.
use as well.
Thank you.
So the next question, does every property that butts against the trail have automatic access to the trail despite environmental issues like erosion and vegetation loss or the removal, altering of 6-foot chain mesh fencing that was installed as a condition of subdivision development in Pleasant View and Heritage Place subdivisions? So to answer shortly, no, work should not occur within the county's trail corridor without permission, whether that's by an encroachment agreement or for permanent accesses or by a work permit for temporary uses. In this situation in particular, the fence was not located on county property, but the construction of an access from that fence to the trail was not permitted, and the county will be following up on that. Any questions?
No.
There's a trail sign near my home that says zero tolerance for speeding. What does this expression mean? Because my understanding of it is that it has been not existed for at least the last 6 years at this location. So the county has been endeavoring to improve enforcement, and patrols now have been increased and have speed radar and will be using it going forward. The next question, there's a radar device on the trail. Why has its data not been used to collect occurrence reports for increasing patrols at this location? Where can a homeowner get a record of the data collected on this machine? So in this particular location, patrols have increased based on the correspondence we've received of issues occurring in that location. The data from the counter can be obtained by submitting a request under the MFIPA, or Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection and Privacies Act. And the data is collected typically on an annual basis. However, if we received the MFIPA, we would make sure that we had the most up-to-date data for the person requesting that information.
Okay.
Next question. In December, we were told a community safety zone designation was coming for our neighborhood that would double trail fines. When is this happening? Can it really happen if the county is not charging for speeding? County still just giving warnings 8 years in? And when if it is to patrol? So at our December meeting between the OPP, bylaw enforcement, and Township of Laurentian Valley and City of Pembroke and the county, a potential incorporation of the community safety zones into the trails bylaw was brought up. However, further investigation has revealed that community safety zones can only be applied to roads as they are incorporated under the Highway Traffic Act and are not applicable to trails. However, as part of the draft updates to the Trails Governing Bylaw, we are proposing increased fines in that 20-kilometer-per-hour zone to better deter issues in those community safety zones or communities. And that will be part of our proposed updates to the bylaw next week. At this point, any questions about the last few?
No. Oh, Wendy, I'm sorry.
So I just wanted to clarify the community safety zone. You said that only applies to roads, but can you not, as a county, designate community safety zones, or can you not?
Yes, so we can designate community safety zones. However, the doubling of the fines that occurs as a result of a community safety zone is a provision under the Highway Traffic Act and is only applied to roads.
Okay, thank you.
So why have the sign?
I believe it's been up since before my time on trails, but I believe it was to draw more attention to the 20-kilometer-per-hour zone.
But it says community safety zone, 20 kilometers. Does it not say something about charges will be late or something? I drive by them, but I don't actually read them because I know the rules, of course. But if it's not going to be enforced, why?
Again, I think it was meant to draw more attention to the
Right.
20-kilometer-an-hour zone. I don't think it says that fines will be doubled in that location, but I'd have to look into that one.
Okay, thank you.
In the winter, why does the county not close the gates when there are multiple reports of speeding for sections where there are speeding problems? The ATVs have never had problems with closed gates. In summer, side-by-sides are a lot wider than any snow machine. When you answer for safety reasons, that is unacceptable to me because the slowing speeds down is a much larger priority here toward being safe than a few closed gates sending a message. So the gates are open during the winter to allow the groomer to fit through. They don't fit through the opening for the side-by-sides, unfortunately. Why does the county not close the trail when behaviors become so extreme? Formerly, private property negotiations for access meant misbehaviors could be remedied by removing access permission. Now with this wide open trail, you have lost control to correct any of the misbehaviors using this method. So what is your alternative? Nothing. So whenever we get multiple reports in a short span of a spike in things happening, say on a weekend, we do reach out directly to Protect 5 right away to increase their enforcement in that location. Whether it's immediate or within a couple days, they will up their enforcement to try and curb that spike in infractions occurring.
Is there a cost per hour for Protect 5?
Yes, that's how their time is allocated or budgeted. It's a cost per hour
Is
service.
that public knowledge? I'm just going from my earlier question as to if the county found money from wherever, can more hours be bought and what would that cost be?
I believe the contract was presented for award publicly, but I don't have the number on the tip of my fingers.
If you can get back, Keith?
Does the trail committee get to receive the proceeds from the fines?
So the fines are issued under the Public Offences Act.
So it goes to
So
the
they
province.
automatically go through to the general reserve of the county because we're responsible for the provincial offences and enforcing those fines.
Can you let us know about that?
For the
As to
costing?
the cost per hour?
Yes.
Thank you. Brian?
How much do you reach out and work with the ATV and Skidoo organizations to have their wardens on the trail and to educate their members? Because there needs to be a whole culture right from the bottom that, you know, in residential zones, you slow down when you're passing by somebody on a bicycle or walking their dog. You need to be doing 20 kilometers, and it needs to start right from the club level. And change the culture from there. And they need to lean on people that aren't abiding by it to know that it looks bad on everybody.
Yes, so we are in regular contact with Brantford County ATV Club as well as District 6 of the Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Clubs. We discuss any spikes in infractions that occur so that they can reach out to their club members and let them know that this is happening, that we are aware of it, and to try and educate them. We don't share any scheduling for enforcement with those groups, just so that the less information on the schedule so that people can avoid them is out there, the better. But as far as educating, we do reach out to them and attempt to get them to talk to their members as much as possible.
Is it coordinated at all?
The enforcement patrols?
Education and...
Yes, yeah. Regularly, they'll do social media campaigns based on input from us as well.
Okay.
Next question, we were instructed repeatedly to record dates, facts, and times occurrences by OPP Superintendent Neufeld, and this data, trouble times would be identified and patrols would be assigned accordingly. Weekends between 3 and 7 p.m. were repeatedly reported, with these same times on some Fridays being problems too. Why have we not seen these promised patrols? So we, at the county, have used this and shared this with Protect 5 Inc., and as identified earlier, to identify those hotspot areas and those best times to be out on the trail to get the most out of our patrols, and do regularly have them out on weekends on that 2 to 7 or 3 to 7 time frame.
Okay.
What more can residents do to get the trail rules followed properly so we can have our neighborhood back and trail users can use the trail for what it was intended to be used for? The issues are speeding, out-of-hours operation, out-of-season operation, underage operators, noise, illegal mufflers, plateless machines. So I would ask that these continue to be reported to the County of Renfrew, either through myself via email or via calling in, as well as to the OPP non-emergent line so that they can be made aware of these issues as well. If only choosing one, I'd prefer it come to me so that we can make sure that we get Protect 5 out on the trail and enforce the bylaw itself. We are also open to any consideration of any improvements that can be done to either enforcement or the design of the trail to improve things as well.
Okay.
What can be done to get more police presence to get the escalating behaviors under control? When will the police have dirt bikes and snow machines so they can catch the trail terrorists? Cop cars and no pursuit policy just encourages more lawlessness. So the OPP SAVE team does conduct trail patrols on ATV and snowmobile. However, continued reporting to me can better identify these hotspot areas and better schedule bylaw enforcement to be in those areas at the appropriate times as well. As noted earlier, bylaw enforcement is out on ATVs during the ATV season and on snowmobiles during the snowmobiling season. Question 22, how many speeding charges were laid this winter on the trail to send the message that the trail is for recreation and tourism and not for drag racing with no mufflers? So from November to March, no speeding charges were laid, 7 warnings for speeding were issued, 1 charge for modified exhaust was issued, and 1 charge for operating on a closed trail was issued. Next question, I moved to Burns Drive because it was a quiet private area. This privateness includes a private road that should limit public access. Like many everywhere, I wanted to have my cottage be the place where I could go to relax and unwind. It was my intention to retire here for the same reasons. Why has the county destroyed this community with trail noise, dust, and speeds, a special interest of a limited recreation group and motors? So to answer this one, the county has no ill intent or means to destroy anybody's community. Through continued submissions and we continue to endeavor to make improvements where we can and identify those hotspot areas to get enforcement out on the trails as well. Next question, why isn't the county using its noise bylaws to control trail noise and the speeds in the residential areas next to the trail? The county does not have a noise bylaw. However, the proposed updates to the trails governing bylaw do make it easier to issue fines to operators of machines with a modified exhaust. Fining based on noise is very difficult. You can't just go out with a noise measuring device and be able to issue a fine from that. That's based on input from ProTech 5 as well as the OPP. What improvements has this trail brought to the neighborhood? How has the county shown itself to be a good neighbor? So we continue to conduct or accept any input from the community and try to make improvements as a result of it. As stated, our department took on recreational trails back in 2023. Since that time, we've got regular patrols out, which wasn't occurring prior to that. We started planting cedar bushes and putting in topsoil berms to help negate noise in certain areas as well. And any such endeavors on those hotspot areas, as noted before, we try to improve things as best we can each year. Additionally, as far as contributing to the community, in May of 2021, the county published a trail usage report prepared by the Ontario's Trails Council, which highlighted the many different user types on the trails, the number of trips per year on the trail, and the amount spent at local vendors, restaurants, and accommodations the previous year. So approximately $215,000 was spent by 525 respondents to this survey. On average, respondents per trip were spending about $178 or $179 per person per trip. Additionally, in 2024, the county undertook a similar public engagement with a focus on ways to improve recreational trails, which led to the development of the new trail governing bylaw, which was established in 2024, which led to increased enforcement and also led to a directive to continue recreational trail acquisition and development. Additionally, from that public engagement is where the initial request for off-road motorcycles being incorporated into the trails network was originating from as well. Any questions about that one? The next one, if we want speeding to be under control, wouldn't enforcing the stop signs help to accomplish this? When our speed inhibitor is going to be installed? So yes, enforcement of full stops at stop signs would inhibit speeding as part of was part of the solution and still is. Now that the county has purchased speed radar guns and has bylaw for enforcement certified in their use, there'll be further speeding enforcement as a result of this as well. Additionally, as discussed earlier, a pilot chicane will be installed this summer and it will be incorporated into next winter as well.
Are bikes included in bylaw enforcement, as in 10 speeds, I want to call it?
So cyclists
stopping
are required to stop at stop signs as well.
Okay.
What about speed?
That one's a little more difficult. They are technically supposed to be included under the speed enforcement bylaw. However, from my understanding, a lot of them don't have a speedometer on them. So it's difficult we haven't had issues with complaints of speeding e-bikes yet. I think we received one in the last month or so, but prior to that, I hadn't had any.
Because I have been passed by cyclists.
I can believe that. It's one of the things we're going to have to continue to incorporate into our trails governing bylaw as a means of enforcement as well.
Okay.
Next question, when the county says it only has limited trail patrols available, are they not indicating they cannot maintain the trail safety? So similar to the OPP out on the highways, our trail enforcement cannot be everywhere at once. We do try to endeavor to establish patterns and have increased trail enforcement quite a bit over the years. Perhaps we need to continue increasing it. However, we do identify those hotspots and have them focus on those areas as well. And that'll be a continuing development as we go forward. I believe that's all of the questions I received.
Okay. I do have a copy of your December 4th meeting with your new committee, and the enforcement patrols would double in 2026. So have the patrols doubled, or You're going from 15 to 25, is that what you said?
Yes, so it was around the 15 mark in 25. In 2026, it's 25 hours on average.
Okay. And another question was regarding the tree planting. Can you just, maybe just tell us again, is where the tree planting is going this year?
So currently, between the Algonquin Trail and Burns Drive area, a couple hundred meters of cedar bush has been planted. 2 years ago was the first time we implemented putting in a topsoil berm. We're attempting to partner with the Township of Laurentian Valley on a tree grant to maximize the number of trees we could put in. Unfortunately, that grant didn't work out. So last year, we just planted all of the trees we could with the budget we had available in that topsoil berm. That'll be planned to proceed again this year, continuing tree planting in the berm that's in place, as well as extending the berm as much as our budget will allow. We are exploring further grants through the Trans-Canada Trail Network that may be able to put towards tree planting as well. So part of the reason for the tree planting is it's a more natural, lower cost solution compared to a noise barrier. And now that we've identified that the berm actually helps with that as well, it increases the height immediately of the noise suppression, and then it's cedar bushes that get planted to absorb some of that noise as well.
Okay. Final comments, questions, council?
One comment, one question. Can council be privy to the amount of fines? For example, no insurance, no trail permit, so on and so forth. Is speeding fines typical to that, to the OPP charge? I guess that's my question. Can council be aware of that?
So the fines issued through our bylaw enforcement, we do get monthly reports on that. And in the reports, anytime you see I believe it's POV in there, it means that they issued a fine on that patrol. So that will be part of the monthly report that's shared with council going forward.
But I'm speaking to the amount of the fine for the infraction, like the dollar.
That can be incorporated. So it identifies what the fine is, and then it would link back to our fines within our bylaw. But
Okay.
that we can identify what the fine is and link it to the bylaw as well.
Okay, so my comment is to confirm my thinking. I think you mentioned earlier, if council here decided that instead of looking at your budget as to what you're spending further west to extend the trail, if we had some sort of solution to say, hey, we would like this much more for Protect 5 to be involved, you would be entertaining that?
I would present it to county council, and that would be, I'd present it to our operations committee, and if they wanted to reallocate our work plan and our operating budget towards further enforcement, that would be something we would proceed with.
Brian?
So listening to this, it seems that most of the eggs are in the basket of the new speed radar guns to improve things on the trail at this point. My question is, can you allocate the majority of the hours for enforcement right now on the front end of the season and get out there with the gun as many hours as possible and publicize in the first month you laid 25 charges and the average fine was this amount, instead of spreading it out over the whole summer and getting one or two? Get on it right away and drop the hammer hard on the front end of the season here and make an example of some people.
Yeah, that can certainly be something we proceed with. I think that's a good plan, to have a spike in enforcement, and they'll have the speed radar gun out with them on all of their patrols. However, the 2 officer at one at each end is the best way to try and keep the speeders from just being able to drive away. But that's something we will endeavor and do a spike in enforcement going forward for that.
Alan?
So seeing that the fines go through provincial offenses and then that money just goes into the general account of the County of Renfrew, could Laurentian Valley request that the County of Renfrew take those fines and turn it back into more enforcement on the trail?
From similar requests at our committee and council meetings, it's difficult to track all of the funds that come from POA. Yes, we have what fine was laid and when, but when it actually gets paid and comes to the county through the POA is a little more up in the air. But it is going into the general reserves for the county, which in turn gets spent on trails, roads, like everything across the County of Renfrew.
But if there's going to be hopefully an increase in those fines, Laurentian Valley could request the county of Renfrew then, seeing that they're getting those dollars as income, to increase the patrols on the trail in Laurentian Valley, if we sent a motion to that effect to the county of Renfrew or through our representative.
Yeah, so that would be something we could present to our operations committee for consideration in increasing our operations budget as a result of revenue from fines. It would, again, it'd be a decision and approval through operations committee and county council.
Okay. So I guess, Taylor, in closing, but I do appreciate the time you spent here tonight. You've answered a lot of questions. The promise is there to improve. I know for taxpayers that live along the trail, they've heard it before, and I'm really hoping we move forward with this. I certainly encourage, as council members have said tonight, top end is huge. We got to enforce the people that are breaking the rules, and the sooner we can get them slowed down or the equipment off the vehicles that shouldn't be on there, will go a long way and bring some of their lifestyle back in the built-up areas along the trail. So I certainly encourage you to do that. Any other money, as Councillor Hughley said earlier, money to improve or continue the trails, maybe solve the issue that's on hand before you spend more money down the road. So I encourage you and pass that back to the county. And again, I really appreciate you being here tonight. And I told you we wouldn't put you totally underneath the bus, but you've certainly given us a new look and allowed us to ask the questions.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, I really appreciate being invited to have this discussion. Like I said, we're always open to any way we can improve things along the trail, and I definitely have some notes here that I need to follow up on to make improvements and increase that enforcement and make sure that the radar gun is being put to its maximum use, especially early on, to try and curb those issues.
So possibly, once you've gone through your notes and whatever, maybe you could send a summary back to us on what you're going to work on through Dean, if you would.
Yes, I can have that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry? Yep. All right. Thanks, Taylor. See ya. Okay, next I'd like to welcome Sarah, is it Dara? Okay, who's our new inspector for the Upper Ottawa Valley OPP detachment. And first time here, I'd like to welcome you. I'm pretty well heard from all of our councillors already and who they are, so I will turn it over to you. And again, as mentioned before, you're here to make your presentation on the OPP and all new information, and then we'll take a period of time, certainly not as long as we kept Taylor, but to ask a few questions that you're able to answer, because I do know that some of the questions asked cannot be answered. But I'll turn it over to you, and we'll get it rolling.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for having me. As the Mayor said, I am the new detachment commander for the Upper Ottawa Valley. My name's Sarah Dara. Just a brief overview for those of you who don't know me. I grew up in the valley, or, well, I guess it's considered Nipissing, but we'll say it's the valley in Whitney. Went to school in Barry's Bay. I started my career with the Toronto Police Service and came over to the OPP. Went to Renfrew, came to the front line in Pembroke and went to Killaloe, and now I'm back here. So very happy to be here, very happy to present. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak to the work that now Superintendent Neufeld has done and the relationships that he's created. And while Steph and I are similar, we are different, but one thing that we do value most is community, and I hope that you'll see that throughout my presentation. This presentation is going to speak to 2025 in review, what 2026 will look like, and I'll just touch on some key programs that we have in place to work with the communities. And like the mayor said, I will then dive into some of the questions that were provided, and in fairness to myself, I was provided them today, so I will do my best to give answers that I can. Others, I don't want to comment on necessarily because I don't want to provide information that's not concrete. So with that, we can flip to our next slide. So I always start off my presentation with this slide, and essentially it's what governs us, the officers, et cetera, our vision, safe communities, secure Ontario, and our values. So I always throw that out there just so everybody can see how we operate, what our mission, our vision, and our values are. And we are guided by our strategic plan. As you can see, it is currently outdated. There is a new one that has been completed. It's just going through its approval process. So we still abide by that. And our strategic plan is broken up into 3 pillars: people, work, and communities. And that's how my presentation is going to be reviewed tonight. So our people. They are the backbone behind our organization. They are the ones that get the job done day in and day out in your communities. And 2025 was absolutely a year of growth for our people and success. Next slide. And I just threw up a few pictures. Our auxiliaries up top in the center receiving awards for the commitment and support that they provide to our communities. On our far left would be our Officer of the Year for the Upper Ottawa Valley Detachment of 2025. Bob Fitzgerald was recognized for his efforts. So new members. So I put this on the slide just to show everyone that we are evolving, we are increasing, which is very, very positive. Upper Ottawa Valley, Laurentian Valley, we are, our calls for service are increasing, our population's increasing. So having new members is helping us get the job done better. So in 2025, we received 6 recruits. Between February and May of 2026, we received 6 recruits, and we have 1 more confirmed for July, and as of today, we have another one for October. So very, very positive. Lateral transfers, which is an experienced officer coming over from a different detachment or service, 1 in 2025. We received 2 in May, and again, as of today, we are receiving 1 in September. Recently just promoted a new sergeant, Sergeant Kyle Wilson, and in March, Staff Sergeant Tina Davenport was promoted to Operations Manager at the Pembroke Detachment. So very, very positive. People that were in our office, so they know the area, they know our community members, so very, very positive to have those in our leadership roles. So this slide, I touch on it, and you'll see why in a moment. So the OPP has made strong progress in our people-centered approach. The key focus is on the psychosocial factors, such as growth, development, recognition, balance, clear leadership, which in turn supports our members' well-being, performance, and ultimately making our communities safer. One of my biggest goals, and that was started in 2025 and one that I continue to ensure, is that increased training and development for our officers. So, I'm going to speak to some of these questions later, and one of the questions, Councillor, you were talking about the mufflers. Training is key. Training is key for that type of thing, and a lot of our officers don't have that type of specialized training. So I'm not suggesting that that's a specific training, but improved training in different areas, whether it's domestic violence, it's investigations, it's commercial motor vehicles, it's all of those things. So developing our officers, providing them with more specialties to be able to service our communities better, as well as leadership development. And I'm not talking just in rank, I'm talking on the ground with our coach officers. You saw the amount of recruits we're getting. It's imperative that our coach officers have the leadership skills to be able to develop these young officers and to support them all the way up to our sergeants and our staff sergeants, being able to provide leadership and guidance for these younger officers, which ultimately comes into retention. I want our detachment to have the support, have the development, because I want these officers to stay. I want to give them a reason to be here. Our communities are lovely, and I want them to know that, but I also want them to have the resources and to be able to stay within our communities. And what does this have to do for you? Well, if I have trained, the well-being of members secured, we have less sick time. We have more officers on the road, more officers dedicated to your communities, providing that enhanced enforcement. So that is why I put this slide up here, to show that that is the direction and that is the reason why. Our work. Again, just this slide speaks to what our officers do on the daily. Next slide. Just some of the enforcement efforts. I'm sure many of you have seen them. Down below is some speed enforcement on the roadways. Up top is a commercial motor vehicle stop. The bottom one, given all of the stuff we've talked about, that is a speed enforcement on the Algonquin Trail. So yes, next slide. So statistics. This is an overview, like I said, of 2025. So we had a 65% increase in highway traffic act charges, and that's inclusive to Laurentian Valley. That's roadways, that's trails, et cetera. We had a minimal decrease in property crime. So where the number brought us up is an increase in frauds. Frauds are an awful thing, and I'll speak later about what we're doing to try to combat that, but the way our society is evolving, frauds are definitely a huge factor right now. We did see a decrease in break-and enters and mischiefs, 9% decrease in violent crime, 33% increase in drug crime. And I don't want you to be alarmed by this. This was due to a couple warrants that were executed and charges were laid in relation to it. So that's where that increase came from. 0 reported overdoses and a 43% increase in patrol hours in Laurentian Valley. So just to give you an idea, 2024, there were 425 hours of patrol. 25, there were 661 hours of patrol. Foot patrol, so walkabouts, 2024, there were 16 hours, and 2025, there were 35 hours. Snowmobile patrols, and this, I was going to use this later on to answer one of the questions, but 2025, there were 20 hours of dedicated snowmobile patrols, and 2026, there was, just for the January to March, there were 26 and a half hours of dedicated snowmobile patrol.
And that includes the safe team, or safe team is separate?
So the safe team is separate. That is strictly, these numbers that I'm providing you right now are strictly of the Upper Ottawa Valley members. The safe team, they were up in the area. However, to get those statistics pulled, it's proving to be a little bit more complex. So I can account for 3 times throughout January of Q1, so January to March of this year, that the SAVE team has been up. 2025, we're working to pull those stats, and I will provide you with those when I get them. So that's those 3 times are on top of the 26 hours for 2026.
Sorry to ask, but is there, the 20 hours spent, is that on an actual snow machine?
Yes, that is dedicated to the patrol.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Next slide. So OMAP. OMAP is a new program that has come out within the OPP, and it is essentially to crack down on high-risk offenders. and ensure that they are complying to their release conditions, whether they're judicial, probation, whatever they may be. So the Upper Ottawa Valley Detachment received two OMAP officers. We're one of the only detachments in East Region that received two, which is great because those two officers can work together to do compliance checks on these high-risk offenders, lay the appropriate charges. It also takes away from the time that our officers are spent doing compliance checks, so it's positive. So those officers are now on the road, opposed to the OMAP office, or opposed to doing the compliance checks that the OMAP officers are doing. And essentially, the program, they have a database. They see who is on conditions, and they go and conduct door knocks, whether it's curfew, to check on them, and they lay the appropriate charges as required. So just to give you a few stats just for the quarter one, and when I refer to quarter one, it's January to March. They're still working on this program, so right now, for the entirety of Upper Ottawa Valley, it's not conclusive to Laurentian Valley, but for the entirety, we have 37 people on the Offender Management and Apprehension Program database, and to date, there's been 6 charges laid already in bail conditions. So fortunate, unfortunate, obviously we don't want anybody to be breaching, but at least we have the ability to engage with them and put them back into the court's hands and request those stricter conditions to keep them there. So ultimately keeping our victims safe, and yeah, so it's extremely positive. RIDE. So the RIDE grant previous to 2025 was an annual grant, and it was done through municipalities. They changed the RIDE grant up this year, or last year, sorry, and they now made it a 4-year grant. But it's inclusive to all municipalities that fall under an OPP location. So the Upper Ottawa Valley, for example, there are 13 municipalities that fall under the Upper Ottawa Valley. So I had to apply for the grant for all of the municipalities, and we were successful in getting it. They give you a certain amount of money. Is it enough? No. However, we did our best to share up that money between all of the municipalities to ensure that everyone received as many rides as possible. And now this is just inclusive to the ride grant. That's not contributing to or counting the rides that our officers are doing on the daily. But for the ride grant, for the quarter one, which is December to end of February, there were 3 ride grants dedicated to Laurentian Valley. Most received 2. Most municipalities. So you guys are on the higher end when it comes to paid duty officers out in your areas. Of those 3 paid duties, 2 yielded 1 impaired driver each. And out of the 3, there were, I would say, close to 400 to 500 vehicles stopped within those programs alone. So it is positive that we don't have to apply for it for another few years. So we know we have it, and we know we'll utilize it to the best of our ability. So very, very positive in that way. Our mobile crisis response team, I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but we have 2 mobile crisis response teams within the Upper Ottawa Valley, which is a constable and a mental health crisis worker. And they go out, they team up, and they interact with those in crisis, and they work to provide them supports and services to combat the issues that they're dealing with, and they have proven to be a vital resource for us, for our communities, and we have seen a downward trend in calls for service when it comes to mental health. And I mean, there's a lot of programs in the county that we're utilizing, but I contribute a lot of our success to those those teams going out there, interacting with these folks, getting them the services they need, obviously engaging with different services within Renfrew County, and setting these people up for success with the resources that they need. So two very positive units, or one very positive unit that we have, grant funded, so very, very important that we stay on top of that, but very, very useful for our communities. And like I said, it is a downward trend in mental health calls for service for Laurentian Valley specifically.
This is a relatively new program as well, is it not?
It's been a few years,
Okay.
but the uptake, there's been a greater uptake recently, and the fact that most locations have one, we've been able to utilize our grants to have two.
Thank you.
In our communities. Next slide. Just a few pictures here. The food drive, a fraud presentation in the bottom, our engagement with the schools, and our participation in our provincial recruitment day. Community engagement, as I said at the beginning, community engagement is key for me. And one of the things that I wanted and I will continue to push for is increased presence in our communities, specifically our schools. Our officers have engaged within the last few months with our schools on a regular basis, interacting with our youth. I don't want our youth's first interaction to be that of negativity when they see us. I want them to see us as a positive influence. So going into the schools and just having those interactions, whether it's going into the gym and throwing a basketball, just having that interaction. And early on in 2026, our stats show right now we have 0 youth charges in Laurentian Valley. And which last year at this time, I believe there were 6. So I'm going to attribute that to the officers' involvement and just, whether it's a deterrence or whether it's the engagement, whatever it may be, but it's certainly a positive aspect. As well as our proactive engagement at community events such as the food drive and different things like that. And anti-fraud. You will see more presentations in regards to anti-fraud. As I said, it's something that's taking over right now, and we are doing everything. Our auxiliary unit is out and about doing presentations. So if there's any locations or people in your area that would like a presentation within Laurentian Valley, please reach out. We're happy to provide it. They go into, the auxiliaries have been going into community centers, libraries, nursing homes, wherever it may be, and interacting with these people and providing them the literature and just ways to deal with certain scammers calling them. So very positive and something that we need to stay focused on and ahead of, because we're all educated people and it can happen to any one of us. So
Absolutely.
Something that...
And I think through Keith, who's a member with our Laurentian Valley Fit and Feisty over 50, I think that would be a great group that you could make a presentation to, or one of your staff, on their coffee hours, Coffee Connect, because they have 100, 150 people that show up, and I think that would be very informative for them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a long presentation, but it's something that gives the ways to mitigate it, ways to deal with it, and resources if you're ever in that situation. So yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to connect with you after. And
Okay, thank you.
so that is it for my overview of 2025. If there's any questions.
Council have any questions? I have a couple. I know you've increased the patrol in 2024 to 2025 by about 160 hours. Is there any chance that some of those hours in 2026 could be transferred to the winter season or summer season regarding the Algonquin Trail, where, again, as you heard earlier, we're asking the county to top end the first part of the season? Is there any way that we could see more of a presence from the OPP?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to break that down, okay? Because it's a bit of a question in the sense of, for us to be positive influences on that trail, it needs to be in a form of a snowmobile or an ATV. We can sit there with cruisers all day long. The reality is it comes down to the specialized training I was speaking of and
Yes.
having the officers that are trained to do so. So yes, there is the ability to do that. The cruiser patrol, and that's why it's broken down. It's cruiser patrol, snowmobile patrol, and foot patrol. School patrol is on there as well. So yeah, there is the ability, but it's to have those officers that are trained to go out and do that. And we are limited. They only offer so many courses a year. So we are working on getting other more officers trained. We had 3 trained this winter alone. It's just to get them out there on the trails.
Okay. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, as you're well aware, the increase in costing for OPP. How to bring it up. It's wonderful that I've seen, or we've heard tonight, that you've got 6 new members, you've got the OMAF team officers. How do we get that many more? Because the OPP costing is province-wide, correct? Or is it based on more officers from one year to the next?
So the OPP has done a review of all the detachments, and they've broken it down as to what the need is for officers per detachment based on calls for service, a geographical location. There's a variety of other things in there. And with that review, they have allotted certain numbers to certain detachments, whether some detachments have an excess of officers
Right.
based on their calls for service. UOV does not. We need more officers. That number fluctuates, but we will continue seeing an increase in officers for so they call it our service delivery model. And it's a 7-year plan, and that plan started 2 years ago. So we will continue to see an increase in officers coming to our detachment for the next 5 years.
Okay, great. Years ago, you used to say that we got 2 officers 24/7 in Laurentian Valley. Has that changed, or are we getting more hours? I know we're getting more staff to your detachment. Are we getting more hours for service now than we were, say, 5 years ago?
So it is broken down, assignments are broken down into zones, and officers are out and about in their zones. Priority calls will dictate where they go. So there might be officers assigned to Zone 2, and they're out there doing their patrols and whatnot. But if a priority call comes in Petawawa, and there's the need for the excess of officers there, they're gonna go. So we do allocate resources to the zones, so yes, to Laurentian Valley, but priority calls are gonna dictate where the officers go throughout the night. But yes, they start off assigned zones, and they finish off assigned zones, but it's dependent on the priority and seriousness of a call.
Okay, thank you. My last question, and I bring it forward just because of recently on Pleasant View Drive, we had 3 vehicles stolen within 24 hours or whatever it was. You obviously must have officers trained on the investigation into that. Are you seeing an increase in the detachment as a whole, or is there a decrease?
In stolen vehicles?
Yes.
Yeah, right now, we are a target spot right now for stolen vehicles. Yes, it seems extreme here, however, this is happening in many areas all over. Obviously, this is something that we have dedicated resources to, and as I'm sure all of you are aware, crimes like this aren't localized.
No.
They are, I'm sure you know where we're finding these vehicles, down at the docks and whatnot, right? So this is a
Yep.
larger project than what we have the skills and capabilities to handle, and there is a larger investigative team involved in this specific, these specific thefts right now. I can't comment
No,
anymore
and I
to
don't
deter the
expect to.
investigation, but
Right.
this is bigger than what what we can handle at this point, and that's why we have resources coming in to support us with that.
Good, thank you. Obviously, the message would be is make sure your vehicle is locked at night.
So there has been media messages going out about how to deter it, lights, put a crappier vehicle behind your really expensive one, you know, different things like that. Cameras, you know, some of these higher end vehicles, apparently, I don't drive a high end vehicle, so apparently you can pull out there's like a GPS point in it that will just shut down the vehicles entirely, so that nobody can even remove them from your driveway. So yeah, anything that you can do to deter, by all means, do what you can.
Okay, Keith?
I don't know if this is a fair question for you, but 6, maybe 7 years ago, we used to have OPP officer would stop in to brief council during our meeting, just some of the going-ons that were happening in the municipality, and share that information. Just a quick drop-in visit. And it seemed to stop all of a sudden at that time. I don't know why. Any chance of that happening again?
Yeah, we can certainly look to do that. I have no issue. If there's something going on, I'll certainly reach out to the mayor, and if it's something that you need to be aware of. Council meetings, we can drop in and do more of a quarterly info session or whatnot. Sure. It doesn't need to be this in-depth, but yeah.
Al?
So just on Keith's point, what it was just the officer that was on duty in the area, when he had an opportunity while our council meeting was on, would come in, we would stop what we were doing. He would just let us know, like, some of the stuff that's going on, 3 to 5 minutes, and he was gone. If he got a call when he was here, he left. So that's all it was, is whoever was in the area at the time, and it wasn't every council meeting.
No.
It was just, they would just pop in, and when they walked in the door, we would just stop.
Yep.
They got the floor for their 3 to 5 minutes, and then they were gone.
It would have to be a more structured approach than that, just given we have a lot of new officers, we have a lot of officers in training, so a meet and greet would be lovely, but to ask them to speak to it, to a few points but certainly something that we could explore,
Okay.
just a little bit more structured, so that they would
Yep.
know what they're coming in to present.
For sure. Brian?
Have you ever suggested, or is it done at all? So the trail closes at 11 o'clock at night, and you can pass by some establishments and you can see a large collection of snow machines outside them. Do the officers ever do like a little walk around inside and go, hey guys, it's 10:30 now, trail closes at 11. If you're planning on heading home on the trail, you might want to get going now and just show the colors and let them know that there is a closing time for the trail. It's different than the closing time for the bar, and let them know that you're out there.
Definitely not something, I mean, I can't speak to what other officers have done. I've certainly never gone in and said that the trail closes, but I've certainly gone in and shown the colors, because if you're at a bar at 10:30, I'm sure that, you know, you're enjoying some beverages and hanging out. So more of a wave the flag in the sense that we're here, we're out and about. But I mean, a valid point in the sense of the trail, but I don't think that's something that is common practice, no.
Is it something that you could?
Certainly. It can be communicated.
It's one way to get your picture on Facebook at 10:30
They
at
may,
night.
you know, they may take alternative measures and do other things, but yeah, it's certainly messaging that can be broadcasted. Yeah.
Okay, so if that part of it is done, I know, Sarah, we did forward you this morning the questions that had come to council, and I apologize for short notice on that. I just, as I said, returned from being away. I don't know if I really need to go through the questions. I think, as you and I discussed earlier, you can make some comments, and then council can ask you a few questions.
For sure. And I mean, Taylor did a good job going over some of them. So the first question speaks to speed enforcement on the trails, and why has the OPP not been asked to use radar? So Taylor did touch on it. So under the Motorized Snow Vehicle Act, we have speed enforcement. Under the Off-Road Act, we don't have speed enforcement. So it would result if we have our radar device, and we see somebody speeding, they would be issued a trespass notice. And as Taylor noted, we do not enforce county bylaw. So in 2026, for example, we laid 3 speed under the MSV, and 1 trespassing. Well,
In this area, or?
yes, in this specific to the
Okay.
trail in the Burns Drive area. Now, the trespass, it wasn't for speed, it was for like a nuisance on the trail, but, so that kind of speaks to the radar. So we can use our radar device and lay under the MSVA. Under the off-road, we would have to issue a trespass because there is no speed enforcement, and we do not enforce bylaw. So to answer the question, we are out there with radar, yes. We have been asked, we are utilized. So any questions in regards to that?
Wendy.
So, just so I understand, because I didn't actually realize that before. So the only time that you could actually charge someone is if they were crossing one of the actual roadways or something at that point. You couldn't on the trail specifically. If they were
For speed,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah,
But on the trail, under the MSVA, yes.
okay,
But off-road, no.
okay. Thank you.
It gets a little complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question 2 speaks to asking why covert enforcement is not being done, opposed to like officers out there on the trails set up in full view. So there's 2 different types of enforcement that we do. There's radar enforcement, and for radar enforcement, we need a clear line of sight with our radar device. So to be sitting back is not always the best, and especially, so if we're in a car, if we're in a cruiser, yeah, we can tuck back, but to be able to safely stop people and have them acknowledge us without them taking off, being hidden isn't the most conducive. On the snowmobiles, again, like I said, we need that line of sight, and the Algonquin Trail, it is fairly open, and for safety purposes, like if we're catching them from say me, the mayor, away, they're not slowing down, and then they're going to take, they have the ability to take off on us, and we cannot pursue, and that's the reality. So that's why we're out in the open with that radar device. When it comes to the other type of enforcement, which would be rides, so similar to the highways, what you would see, we're going to be on the trails, we're going to be stopping, and we're going to be engaging them when it comes to the loud canisters on their snowmobiles, their insurance, and et cetera, that kind of stuff. So that it's simply not safe. It's simply not conducive to getting them to stop appropriately when we're hiding.
So when you made the comment, cannot pursue, if you're on the snowmobile trail and you use your radar gun and they go whipping right by you, you cannot pursue there either, correct?
We will attempt to stop.
You will attempt, okay.
We will attempt to stop if they make no notion to stop and are, when our officers are using
Yes.
their better judgment, if they appear to have no intention to stop, we have to decide what is pursuing and what is not. And we are held to a very, very high standard when it comes to pursuits.
Same as on a road?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Any questions with that? The next question is a 2-part question, and it asks why officers have a different understanding of private road ownership. That's hard for me to speak to when I'm not there. I don't necessarily have the understanding. I can certainly present that topic with the members and discuss that at a detachment level, but to speak to why one has a different understanding versus another, I really can't speak to it other than it's their perception at that time. So certainly something that I can take back and ensure that officers are educated on those specifics, but that's the best I can do with answering that one.
Yeah, I guess the question is, it's a private, excuse me, Burns Drive is private road compared to Mountain View, et cetera, Old Mill Road, which are municipal-owned roads. So I guess, is there a difference on laying a charge for mischief on a private road versus a municipality road? No. Okay.
And then the next question was, when officers attend, why do they not immediately charge for the violations on the trail signs before processing the complaint? Again, I'm not there, however, it's my expectations that the officers do a proper investigation and have an understanding of what's going on, because jumping to a conclusion without having the totality of the circumstances, it's not appropriate. Like, their duty is to investigate properly, and that's, you know, to me, the right thing is for them not to be jumping right to a charge, is to look at it, and if they conclude that a charge is sufficient, that's absolutely appropriate, but they need to be laying appropriate charges based on the information that they're provided.
Okay.
The next one was, I know Taylor did touch on it a little bit, but we were instructed repeatedly to record dates, facts by OPP Superintendent Neufeld with troubled times, and patrols will be assigned accordingly. Why have we not seen the promised patrols? So I can't speak to what was discussed or promised by the previous superintendent. However, as you've heard, I am aware of the concerns, and we are targeting those areas, as you did hear. Like, we have laid the charges. We are putting the vehicles out there. You know, sometimes when we're out there, people don't see us, and we can't all be at the same place at the same time, and we do our best. You know, this is where I was going to speak to, like, our proactive measures, our detachment members, SAVE team, enforcement initiatives, ride programs for patrols. You know, they're continuing, they did continue, and we're doing our best. It's important that, you know, people call in these events. You know, I appreciate that when we get there, these people are gone, but, you know, if you're able to get a plate, if you're able to get a very good description, we will follow up. And that's the best we can do at that point. But we are proactive, we are out there, and we are laying the charges when we can. Yeah, that's.
Yep. Okay.
And what can be done to get more police presence? I know Taylor did speak to that. When will police have dirt bikes, snowmobiles? And the no pursuit policy just encourages more lawlessness. So call us. Let us know what's, like, you know, we need to know what's going on. Make those phone calls. We do focus patrols. You were speaking about that earlier. So if there is you know, a peak time and you know, certain vehicles, let us know. We will do a focus patrol for between a certain time frame, whether it's on a Wednesday night or like whatever it is that the residents are seeing. We will have officers dedicated to that. Obviously, priority calls trumpet, but they will be directed to go out and do those focus patrols.
So where should that come from? Should it come from our CAO? Should it come from myself? Through Taylor? If we want a focused area as we've done in the past.
Right. So if you're getting the feedback from the community, it'd be great to send it to us. Let us know what's happening.
To you directly?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Actually, it'd be better to go to Staff Sergeant Tina Davenport, but we can discuss that after. But
Yep,
yes,
yep.
it will go to her, and she will navigate that. She will get the focus patrol organized. The other thing that I was not aware of was that there is a speed measuring device. That data would be very helpful to us. I mean, I'd have to talk to Taylor a bit more to understand where it is, what it monitors. Because, so for example, I don't know if you've heard of some of the speed monitoring devices that are out there right now, but there's one called the Black Cat, and it's literally this big, and it gives you dates, times, and the speed that the vehicles are going, and it gets downloaded into a program, and it gets sent to us from, so the town of Petawawa has them, and they're able to send it to us, and we can see, okay, this road is busy at this time, or, you know, say you have a roadway in your community where people are suggesting that there is speeding going on. sometimes there's not, and this will show
Right.
that, right? So I want to get a little bit more information from Taylor to see if any of that data would be useful to us, because if we had that information, the times, you know, how much traffic, I don't know what it, again, like I said, I'll have to talk to Taylor because I don't know how much
Right.
information is on there, but having that data is very, very useful for us for those focus patrols and getting resources such as the SAVE team up, because the SAVE team is an East Region complement. So we have to request them, we have to have a need for them. So having that extra would be important.
Okay, Brian?
So were those purchased by the town of Petawawa,
Yeah.
or was it the county, and how much do they cost? And
So the Black Cats were purchased by the town of Petawawa. They are a bit of a penny, but they are very, very valuable. For example, there were 4 roadways, just in the time that I have taken over as detachment commander, there's 4 roadways that they have put these up on, and the data given to us, we were able to create focus patrols in those areas and deter the speed in those areas. So very, very positive, very easy to utilize. The only downfall to them is that you have to be careful with the weather. So Black Cat might not be the option, but there are other devices out there that are able to be utilized in the winter.
so ballpark, how much a piece?
I cannot comment on that, but I can certainly get the data forwarded to the CAO.
Perfect. Okay, perfect.
So where are the county ones?
So Taylor, you'd have to
Placed
come up
in.
to the mic if you, sorry, but. I said I wouldn't put you guys together, but,
So the county has a similar radar, it's not the Black Cat type, but similar radar traffic counting device. It records speed, class of vehicle, things like that. We use them on an annual basis on our county roads. We have them on a 5-year cycle. The speed radar device that's out on the trail near Burns Drive is a Your Speed Ahead sign. It records the speed, times, dates, and all that as well, so we can provide that to the OPP too.
okay, thanks, Taylor.
Sorry.
Sorry, Taylor.
One question you and I discussed today is, it was my understanding there was a lot more calls from residents to the OPP with issues. And that number didn't seem to be very high with you. And what I'd like to confirm is the number they should be calling.
So if it's an emergency, 911?
No,
If it's a non-emergency,
non-emergency numbers. what I-
1-888-310-1122.
And that's the number Taylor has, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to confirm that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I think the last question was, there was talk about how many speeding in the winter. We laid 3 MSV-related speed charges in 2026.
Okay, thank you. What's that, Brian?
In what area was that? Is that on the whole, in the whole detachment, or?
That's dedicated to the Burns Drive area.
Okay, just.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Any more questions for Sarah? Okay. Sarah, really appreciate you coming here tonight and introducing yourself. Thank you to you and your team for keeping our community safe. And I know I take the opportunity when I meet OPP officers to say thank you for your job. And I encourage other people to do that.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me. We will follow up in regards to the fraud presentation. Perfect, okay. That's wonderful. Thank you for
Good.
having me.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll get back. Okay, welcome back to our council meeting for May 19th. Sorry. We'll reconvene here, and we're at the treasurer's report. Any questions for Annie? Seeing none. Public Works for Mark. I guess all your tenders are back, Mark, and road construction will start?
Yeah, tenders are, we're out February and closed. Biggest delay right now are locate requests. They're taking almost a month to come back, so once the locate requests come in, then the work will get started. So yeah, crew is ready to go and ready to start whenever the locates are in.
Right on. Keith?
Just, Mark confirmed with me today that if you're going to attend the AOR's trade show,
Yes.
you should actually register in advance. There's a need to do that so that otherwise you go and you're going to have to do it there before you enter, so.
Yes, yeah,
I just wanted
registration for the
to
trade show is
share that
free.
with the rest
so-
of council.
Okay, yeah, we have that email. Planners report and CEMC report. Laurie, oh, there you are. Good to see you. Do you want to talk about where we're at with the flooding and lack of at the moment?
Yes, so the good news is at least we're going in the right direction. So the update that was posted tonight, just because it's a short one, I can just kind of read that out. It said spring runoff in the northern part of the basin is slowly receding but remains high. Along the main stem of the Ottawa River, the decline in water levels and flows has slowed down at all locations due to recent rainfall and continued large volumes of water from the north, with water levels from Mattawa to Lake Deschênes remaining near or slightly below minor flood levels. Over the next few days, water levels and flows are expected to remain fairly stable before gradually declining again in all locations. And we've certainly seen the drop and the drop down, and even from yesterday, the current levels posted yesterday were lower than the forecast level, so it's again going in that right direction. And from some staff pictures as well for people that live along the river, they did note as well that it did drop quite a bit again this morning. So we are in the right direction, and per our discussion earlier today, including Public Works Manager, we will be getting some messaging out related to the approach for debris management and having, sandbags to the curb and that type of thing. We're just going to wait. We do have another Frechette call meeting tomorrow at 10 o'clock. We'll just see from that. As much as, we feel it's all going in the right direction, we don't necessarily want to say just go ahead and pull them out right now if they're in place, if it's just for another few days. But we will get that, again, because we have had some questions, so we will get that messaging out on the debris management. And also, I think our Public Works Manager is just going to give a quick little update too, just about Sullivan Point Road and
Yes.
why we're keeping that closed.
Sure, yeah, so we've, as council's aware, Sullivan Point Road was our one municipal road that was affected. We have had a few residents, because of busing and garbage collection services, questioning about reopening. While the water has receded off the road base is still saturated. So just to protect and save the road, we're keeping it closed with the hope of having it open next week. Next week brings large item collection, which also can assist with if residents have any property or furniture and such that was damaged by the flooding, so they can get that out to the curb. So our hope is to have it reopened for next week.
Okay. And Mark, at that time, when it does open, you'll post something saying
Yes,
that
yeah,
that the road
yeah.
is open?
Yeah, we use municipal 511 for the posting, so emergency services, everyone can see that, but we could do a social media post to share that back out as well.
Okay. And then as far as the debris pickup, et cetera, we will put something out as well when we're ready to do that?
Yes, we may do that also as partly a combined notice, and Angela is our, Seabarth is our information officer, and so she will and get that out on our social media and our website. And then we have also started, because we do have some residents down there that say they aren't online, we have some special containers that are clipped down at Matheson Park and near the post office boxes, where we'll put some other information there as well too that they can pick up and see.
Okay. Any other questions for Lori? I'm gonna back one up, Mark, and I did notice today, coming out to the office a couple times, that already the spring pickup, there's debris at the end of the roads. I know it's this weekend, correct?
Yes.
This
yeah.
coming Sunday, correct? Is there something we can get on to our webpage again or Facebook to discourage people to
Yeah,
not put it out to the weekend?
We could put a notice out. I know Reeve Watt and I also had this conversation this morning. And I will speak to our bylaw enforcement officer as well to see if there's notices or something we can deliver. But definitely, I know we do have a joint social media information went out with Waste Recovery and Pembroke and Petawawa, but we could reshare it again to kind of freshen it, bring it back to the top again for sure.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for Mark or Laura? Okay, moving forward, there is no mayor's report tonight. We get a motion, Jennifer and Wendy?
Moved by Councillor Gauthier-Keel, seconded by Councillor Hewitt, that the council received the following reports for mid-April to mid-May 2026 at the regular council meeting of May 19, 2026. Treasurer's report, Public Works Manager's report, Planner CEMC's report.
All in favor? Carried. Move down to Cooper subdivision, Laurie?
Yes, so for council's information, we do have a request once again for an extension of draft plan approval for Cooper subdivision. Again, I had asked, for some reasoning for the need for the extension and possible timing. And again, we haven't kind of been given a date when they reasonably expect they would be moving forward towards final approval, and have again just sort of cited market conditions and overall costs and waiting to start. So I did point out as well that we do have a number of other large subdivisions that are underway, have started construction, and others that are draft approved. So, at this point, we don't have an issue related to capacities or that type of thing, but that, at some point, we start to prioritize a list. This one just keeps being, this is the 10th report I've brought to council on this particular file. So just again, bring that to council's attention. It is in an area of the township that I would have thought would have been a good area to have constructed and for sales, but it just hasn't occurred.
Al?
I realize that there is a charge for the county and there is a charge from the municipality, but is there an opportunity for us to put this person on notice that this is the last one? We will not extend again, and it will lapse, and then he's going to be in a whole bunch of expenses with this, correct?
So certainly council could not support, and then it would be for the county to determine how they're then issuing that decision. The one thing I can follow up on is there had been a lot of changes in the Planning Act. I'm not sure if they could appeal that request. I don't believe so, but again, I just qualify that I will do a little bit of research and bring that back.
But could we also look and see if we can put him on notice that says, yes, we'll approve this one, okay, but this is number 10, okay, and that's as far as we go. And like I say, maybe we'd have to get the county on board to do the exact same thing, but I'm sure they're probably getting fed up with dealing with this every single year, right? There's got to be something to either move this thing forward or sell it to somebody else that's going to move it forward, correct?
No, absolutely. And I think the other thing too is it does come to a point where, maybe we do have to also take a deeper dive back into the conditions of draft plan approval, because things are changing after that amount of time too. So no, absolutely, we can send that notice saying that council's very concerned and, in terms of a future.
And possibly could say that, council's going to revisit the conditions, and there may be more charges if something isn't, ramifications if something's not done in the next year. Anyway, you can bring it back because we're obviously going to approve it tonight. Anybody else? Mover and seconder? Keith and Brian?
Moved by Reeve Watt, seconded by Councillor Hoogley, that Council of the Township of Laurentian Valley supports the request for an extension to draft plan approval for County Road Subdivision File Number 47T 13003, Cooper Subdivision, and requests that the County of Renfrew approve the extension as requested.
All in favor? Carried. Laurie, emergency management, the information item.
Yes, and this is just information again for, I'm so sorry. Just information again for council, just we did get the notification affirming that we had met our requirements for compliance for 2025. So we do have to review for 2026 as there are some changes with the act, so we have to kind of dig down and figure out what that may mean, and hopefully they'll provide us some information on that. As to this point, we haven't kind of had a session on that yet, so we'll keep you posted. But.
Okay, thank you. Brad, I know you've really enjoyed your time sitting there, but I think it's time you come forward to give us your report.
It'll be very short and sweet. So not much to report. On the testing end of it, we didn't have any adverse results in the first quarter. Just in maintenance construction, there was a flow test conducted at 900 Brewham Avenue for a new business going in of some sort. Emergency house shut off, and then we installed the water main stub for the new TMM project off Robinson Lane. Since then, we've done the whole water main commissioning, so they're good to go. We just have to do the final connection to the main and the chamber, the water chamber up by Angus Campbell Drive. So once that's done, then they'll be good to go. Moving to the ministry audit. So unfortunately, I was away when they decided to do a pop-in visit and audit. Which was fine. We had one of our other individuals do it, and I was in conversation with them over the phone. The two findings that they found, one was when the new treasurer came on board, we within 10 days have to change our profile to say that there's a new treasurer, and we did not. So they dinged us on that. And then the second one was we missed an HBC sample. Instead of doing 9, we did 8. So there was that was the other finding. Other than that, she did compliment us on our filing system. Didn't find any other, and found everything else in conformance. So that was nice to hear. Then we had the third-party audit, and that was a little trying, but. So there was 4 opportunities for improvement, no corrective actions. So the opportunity for improvements were that when the operational plan was brought to council the last time, of course, we had a resolution done, and Dean didn't sign the operational plan or the commitment, not that he has to, he has to for this. So they dinged us on that. And so moving forward, we'll just get Dean to sign the operational plan. The second thing was, which is this, I kind of had an argument with him because he advised me that once I appointed myself as a QMS representative, that I didn't have to do it in future resolutions. But then, so I took it out on the last resolution, and then he said, well, there's nowhere that it really states that you're the QMS rep, and I just went like, you told me I could take it out because it was done here. He goes, well, that supersedes this. So it was just a war on words for that one, but that's fine. I've since changed it in the operational plan, which will be coming to council in the future. The third thing was the internal audit with Kendrick. She does her internal audit, and then from there we fix stuff that she finds in all of her documentation. Really, she upgraded, like her audit report was a lot better, and he even said that. He just said he'd like a summary at the end of it. So, and then the last one was just, it was observed that evidence, like, I have evidence of QMS activities. He just wants to see it more in writing. So just like a spreadsheet showing what I've done. So not terrible, could have been worse. But that's my report. Any questions?
No, but I have a separate question.
Shoot.
can you give council a positive update on our new subdivision?
Yeah, so-
As to the water and sewer connections and?
Yeah, so we've completed the water commissioning for the line in the TMM, the one off Robinson Lane. The water line's good. It tested good for hydrostat and also for no E. coli and bacteria in it. So the next steps are, because the 148 project now, we're doing the water commissioning on that project. In order to not have them run as much pipe for temporary water, we're going to try and get the chamber installed up at Angus Campbell Drive for TMM, and then the final connection to the water main down at Robinson Lane, and that'll just alleviate a lot of headaches for the 148. So once those two things are done, and they're hoping to do it this week, we'll see if they have the bodies to do it. But hopefully by next week, that TMM will be fully operational, ready to roll. And then now we start with the 148. We're running into hiccups with the 148 because they have to run a temporary water line. They suggested a 2-inch water main. You need 6-inch for fire suppression for hydrants and such. So we've provided our comments. I just submitted them today to Kavanaugh. So we're just waiting to see what they're going to come back with, and then we'll work it out with them. But working relationships are good. They've been great, JP2G. So we're moving forward and getting the work done. So TMM should be ready to go by next week for water mains and builds, and we'll be there throughout the process to hook up the residential services and make sure we keep pushing forward with that. So
That's great, and that's why I wanted council to get the update that I had already got. So
yeah,
thanks very much, Brad.
Okay,
great job.
have a great night.
Okay, so I talked to Mark earlier, and we're going to discuss the traffic safety review petition as well as a speed reduction request. I'm not trying to group together saying they're less important, but Mark, if you want to go through those three items just to bring council up to date.
Sure, yeah. So over the last few weeks, we've received some traffic safety speed reduction requests. The first is there was a request for a traffic safety review of the intersection of Highway 41 and Witt Road and Zars Lane. Because the intersection is under the control of the province, we did send it through to MTO for review and comment. And aside from an automated response saying that they've received it, we haven't heard anything back yet. So when some information is provided by MTO, I'll share that with council. But there was local business owner started the petition, and there was quite a few signatures. So we're just awaiting a response from MTO to see where that one goes. And the other two, they were speed reduction requests on county roads. The first was Greenwood Road, County Road 40, and the second was Round Lake Road, which is County Road 58. So both of those as well, we sent off to the county. Our understanding, they'll go to their operations committee, and there'll be some reviews and recommendations that are part of that. It seems the county process will return it to us at some point, but because they're their roads, we have to start there. So again, when information is provided from the county of Renfrew, we'll bring both of those back up for discussion again.
Okay, so depending on what the results are of their reports, and council can decide what they want to do with it.
Yeah, what comes back for sure.
Alan?
So is it normal, Mark, that one person makes that request and then it triggers all of this through the county and back to us? Should there not be like the majority of the people on it? Just both of those are just one individual.
Yes, yeah, and I know the Highway 41 was a petition that was started. We do, let's say at the township, we do get residents who ask for a speed reduction request, and
right.
And I guess for us, our typical first step is we'll put out a radar speed sign and we'll just do some information. So I'm not sure what the county's process is,
right.
But I think for now it's just a concern from a resident. So I know the township perspective, we'll put out our speed sign, see if there's a problem. Police involvement, I'm gonna say we don't typically jump into a full study.
Right.
It's more just something on a smaller scale. And a lot of times in those cases, after the speed limit sign, the radar sign comes in, the speeds are fairly close to the speed limit is. There isn't a big, deviance in what the speed limit is. So, yeah.
Okay.
So there's lots of things we can do once we get the answer back from the county, whether we want to survey the residents or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, it sounds like the county has a policy to deal with that, so we'll likely get a response back from the county on the 2 county ones.
And it's just, what triggers it for me is the Greenwood Road one. I live on that, right? And I kind of agree that the speed limit should be reduced in some areas on that. But then I try to get out of my driveway, and if you slow all that traffic down, I'm not getting out of my driveway.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe I don't want it. I really have to sit down and really think about it. Does it make sense or not? Right?
Yes, yeah. And I think that's where, if we're getting into a bigger review, I think it's polling residents and getting some averages and understanding of what the situations are.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, Wendy, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It kind of got answered because I wasn't sure of the process, because not to say that their concerns weren't valid, but I just saw that it was one person too, and I was like, I didn't know what the process was, so kind of got answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, more typical, I find cases like this are more of a phone call or an email, not a more formal request. So I think it's just a resident's concern. I said our normal township approach is we'll put out our speed trailer, collect some information. If we notice speeds are high, we'll forward it on to the OPP for some enforcement, and usually it takes care of itself or helps out, and for most cases, but these being county roads, we forwarded to them, and looks like they've got a bit of a different process, but we'll get some feedback from them hopefully in the next month or so.
Okay, thank you. Lori, bylaw. Mover and seconder. Alan, Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Wren, seconded by Councillor Goche-Keel, that bylaw 2026-05020, dedicated gas tax, be enacted, passed, and be read a first, second, and third time, and be numbered and signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book this 19th day of May, 2026.
All in favor? Carried. Council acknowledgements, you have 4 minutes because we got to be done before 3 hours. Anybody have a comment, question? Okay, good. Note and file? Wendy and Keith?
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Reeve Watt, that any items not specifically addressed by motion of council in the regular meeting of May 19, 2026 be noted and filed accordingly.
All in favor? Carried. Confirmatory bylaw? Brian and Alan?
Moved by Councillor Hoogley, seconded by Councillor Wren. Be it resolved that the Council of Township of Laurentian Valley approves confirmatory bylaw 2026-05021 as having been introduced, read a first, second, and third time, and the said bylaw be numbered and signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, this 19th day of May, 2026.
All in favor? Carried. Adjournment. Wendy and Jennifer.
Moved by Councillor Hewitt, seconded by Councillor Goche-Keel, that the regular council meeting of May 19, 2026 be adjourned at 8:30 p.m.
8:27.
8:27, 8:29.
All in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, everybody.